Miato Agangwaka. Good morning and welcome to the AM show. Now it's 32 more days to go for the 2024 presidential and parliamentary elections. And you want to trust us, your election headquarters, right here on the AM show to keep you up to speed in the build-up to the December 7 polls. Now this morning, why is the AM show worth waking up for? Because we'll start by serving you the AM news. And then after that, we'll sit with our guests. We have Dr. Wisdom Dogbe, a financial analyst, and Kojo Poku is an energy analyst, our favorite duo on Tuesdays, helping us to review the newspapers and the stories captured in there. After that, we'll bring you AM Sports, where Muftana Bila Abdullahi will bring you the latest updates from the world of sports. Our big stories come right after. Now, this morning, we'll be looking at the Ministry of Education as they've rolled out the new curriculum for second cycle schools through the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, NACA, and the Ghana Education Service, beginning this academic year, in what is expected to redefine the future of education in the country by nurturing critical thinking and creativity, but not without controversy. As minorities raised red flags that Education Committee in Parliament was not consulted before the rollout. We'll delve into this new curriculum and the matters arising. And then we'll take you to the United States of America, too close to call. All is down to the wire in the U.S. presidential elections tomorrow. And will history be made for Kamala Harris as the first female president of the United States of America? Or a bouncing back for the business magnate Donald Trump? We'll analyze the poll in 7 battlegrounds. We're talking about Arizona, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Nevada, Michigan, and Wisconsin, where polls show a near tie. You don't want to miss any of the conversations coming in on the AM show, so you can join us across all social media handles. We are Joy News on TV, and share your thoughts with us. And if we do open the phone lines at the tail end of the show, you get to have your say. Folks, it's our absolute pleasure to steer the conversations here. I'm Sweetie Abochi, and I do this with Benjamin Akakbo. Let's get into the AM news now. This is the AM News. Let's get into the details. Starting with, there are sweeping reforms to the senior high school system as the government commenced the implementation of a new curriculum on Monday. Now, government says the changes are to focus on building character development and holistic education to create well-rounded students. The new curriculum takes over from the existing system, with students now required to do a minimum of 7 and a maximum of 9 learning areas in school. Let's listen to Acting Head of Curriculum Development at the National Council for Curriculum Assessment, Reginald Korte, on why this change is necessary.
It is a new curriculum that is standards-based, different from the objective-based or the content-based that we're running time back. And so, as it's being a sequel to the JHS1, we had to find out what really the issues were, and that from stakeholders that we had engaged, it came up that the kind of learners that were coming out from our schools were not meeting global standards. Again, when they come up, they were not able to fit into schools, like in the university, they were not doing very well. And also, when they came out of school, they needed to be retrained. And again, there are a lot of global competencies that our students need to develop. Okay. And so some of those were some of the reasons that we needed to look at the curriculum going forward.
The major changes include grouping specific learning areas into 4 groups with students at liberty to choose subjects which were not included in the courses. Listen to Director General of NACA, Professor Yayura Jakaji, who explains this new system with general science as a case study.
For example, we have a learning area called science. Okay. So we have 4 groups. We have group A, B, C, and D. Okay. In a group A, we have core subjects, which every learner will do once you enter that space.
Which is still the maths.
The maths. But what is unique about a science learner is that the line learner is not going to do general science or core science.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Because that will be taken care of by the biology, physics, and chemistry, which is already in group.
So core maths, core science, they are off.
They are off.
For the science program.
Yes, science
Great.
program.
Okay.
No, the core maths is there.
The core maths is still there.
The core maths is there.
Okay,
It's the core science that is off.
Okay.
No, the core maths is there. It's the core science that is off. Okay. So the learner will be exposed to the physics, chemistry, and biology.
Great.
Yes. So that caters for the core science.
Okay.
Now, according to Director General of NACA, Professor Yaira Jakaji, significant and extensive engagement has been done with all stakeholders before this implementation.
Done a lot of stakeholder engagement, running from chiefs, yes, we engage the chiefs and people of Ghana completely. We engage universities, university lecturers, UTAG, GAWA. We engage teacher unions as in NAT, NAGRAT, and CCT, and then we also went ahead to engage parents. Okay. Parents were also engaged.
Parents were involved?
Yes, were involved. We also engage industry players also, yes, to get the information from them.
Mr. Kwati, I'm interested. During that engagement, the extensive stakeholder engagement that we've talked about, what were some of the issues that came up? What level of, buy-in did we get from all these stakeholders, you would say?
Okay, so like my Director General has said, the engagement came at various stages and at various levels and with various categories of people. So just like you have said, with students, this is the first time when we actually engage students extensively to the extent that even during the writing sections, we brought students to the writing center to actually engage with the writers. And it will marvel you the kind of things that learners themselves wanted to learn and the kind of contribution they also put up.
The Executive Director of the Africa Center for Retirement Research has lauded the NDC's manifesto proposal to make past credits payable to Ghanaian workers from age 50 years if they win the December polls. He says that the policy would improve the social and economic well-being of workers nearing retirement, explaining that the proposal took into account life expectancy and worker mortality statistics in Ghana. And he spoke to Benjamin Akakbo on the AM show yesterday when he analyzed the pensions manifesto of the two political parties, and this happened sometime last week. There
are provisions in the Act 760 that tells you that 5.5% of the employee benefit, of the employee salary should be deducted. The employer should add 13%. That is clear cut. Now, if you are now digging your hand somewhere, it could be very, 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 very complicated.
But it's still taxing, though, is it not? What they're taking right now from us as workers is tax. What they are adding to it...
It's not tax.
It's not, you don't call it tax?
We don't call it tax. It's only in certain jurisdictions that you find it. You find that they call it tax, but it's not actual tax.
Not actually tax.
The tax doesn't come back to you in any form, exactly. But at the end of the day, when we are talking about contribution is returned to you in the form of benefit.
For the sake of time, I want us to breeze through some of them. When there's talk about mortgages, using this in the sense of mortgages, how feasible is that? And then let's also look at when the MPP talks about legislative reform. You've already spoken about having separate legislations for some things. Let's look at those two areas quickly.
Yeah, so the MPP has mentioned, using tier 2 contributions to, as a collateral to secure mortgage for primary residents. The NDC has also mentioned something like that. For me, that is no-brainer for both political parties.
It's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer because it is clearly stated in Section 103(2) of the Act 766 that it's stipulated in the Act that the worker can use his tier 2 contributions as a collateral, to secure mortgage for, primary residence. It's clearly in there, so what is left is just implementation. And I remember in 2016, the MPP did indicate that it was going to implement fully Section 103(2) of the Act 760, which is referring to that.
Moving on, headmistress of the Mamfe Methodist Girls High School, Winfred Arthur, last Saturday advocated for a new approach to education reforms for the benefits of the country. Speaking at the 40th anniversary of the school, she urged the government to boost the development of the infrastructure needed for teaching and learning in second cycle schools in the country. With first-year students teaching sessions set to begin on 10th November, the availability of essential school stationery for effective teaching and learning has become increasingly critical. Here's more.
We imbibe in our girls the tenacity of being resolute as young girls, because we know that in this age, if they are not firm on the rules of Christ, and in our school it's a mission school, therefore the Wesleyan tradition is what we imbibe on. And when we talk about Wesleyan tradition, we are talking about being time conscious, being respectful, being obedient, being self-disciplined. So if you come to the school, you would notice that everything is timed, right from the rising bell to the sleep time. Not long ago, the team from the Ministry of Education came to assess the school for it to be looked at and considered to be a grade A school. What was lacking as a school was some of the infrastructure deficits. The road was one, dining hall is another, few dormitories because of the ever increasing demand for students wanting to come to McGee's. And by the grace of God, the road is done. We are looking forward that on this day that we mark our anniversary, the dining hall project will also be done so that students who want to come to McGee's will be able to pick them. You know, it is the admission seasons and a lot of calls come in. Unfortunately, because of the dormitory challenge and the dining hall and the classroom numbers we have, we are not able to pick the many students that want to come to the school.
Now, the 28th Ghana University Sports Association Games has been launched in UCC at a ceremony organized by the local organizing committee under the auspices of the University of Cape Coast Sports Directorate. The 28th GUSA Games will be hosted by UCC on the theme Repositioning University Sports for National Development. Central Regional Correspondent Erica Sante was at the event and has come through with this report.
16 institutions will participate in the 28th edition of the GUSA Games, which is expected to attract about 4,000 student athletes. The biennial sporting event offers an opportunity for students to showcase and develop their talents. This year's GUSA Games will be held in January because of the December elections. The games will take place between January 3rd and 18th, 2025. Speaking at the launch of UCC 2024, the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast, Professor Johnson Nyakubuampom, expressed UCC's readiness to host a successful event.
University sports serve as a powerful tool for promoting unity, discipline, and excellence. The sports are more than just games. They provide breeding ground for future leaders, innovators, and change makers. The skills and values nurtured through sports are teamwork, perseverance, leadership, and resilience, which are needed to drive national development. Our universities have long been the cradle of academic excellence. It is time we also recognize and harness the potential of sports as a catalyst for national development.
Dr. Ibrahim Shaibu Tanku, the president of GUSA, applauded the university's management and the LOC for their preparation to ensure a memorable hosting of GUSA 2024. He urged the University of Cape Coast to ensure alternative training spaces for the Games.
The GUSA Games, scheduled to ignite from January 3rd to January 18th, 2025, promises to bring together a multitude of talents and aspirations. Yet, as we gather here, we must recognize the unique context of this period. It coincides with Ghana's electoral processes, a cornerstone in our national democratic journey. We are aware that this timing may bring unforeseen challenges, especially if a runoff election takes place. To our dedicated organizers, I urge proactive measures. Could we explore flexible training schedules, alternative training spaces, or providing additional support to maintain our athletes' momentum?
The Vice-Chancellor of UCC, the GUSA President, and the LOC Chairperson, Professor Rosemond Boahene, jointly unveiled the official mascot, Ogua Suapon Okorie. Professor Boahene, on her part, emphasized the importance of sports and athletics.
In the coming weeks, our athletes will prepare tirelessly, supported by coaches, mentors, and friends, to represent their universities and personal aspirations. Our community, in turn, will be there to encourage them, cheer them on, and witness the fruits of their hard work and commitment.
The UCC 2024 Games will see athletes participate in games like football, athletics, volleyball, hockey, handball, basketball, among others. For Joy Sports, my name is Eric Asante, UCC.
A leading member of Alan Kojo Kyerematen's campaign for president team, Hopsin Adoye, has said that the flag bearer of the movement for change would be the first independent candidate to be elected as president in Ghana, thereby rescuing Ghanaians from the mess created by the ruling New Patriotic Party. And he made these remarks during a campaign tour of the Bono East region to canvass votes for the Afrafranto Alliance. Anna Sabit tells us more.
An engagement with voters in the Bono East region as part of campaign strategies ahead of the December 7 polls. Hopsin Adoye, a key figure of Alan Kojo Kyerematen's movement for change, also known as the Afrafranto Alliance, noted that Alan Kyerematen will be the first independent candidate to be voted as president in Ghana's history. According to him, Alan Kyerematen's legacy speaks highly of him, and Ghanaians will give him the credit on December 7.
This is what we are doing. To make sure we have the voter contact. We will not go and bus people to one place, be on the stage, dance, shout, and then come home. No. That we are moving from constituency community to community is very effective more than putting people together. So that is the main reason of the campaign. And I'm confident that, I'm very optimistic that at the end of the season, Ghanaians are going to elect Alan Kyerematen as the first independent president. Look at the smaller towns that we went. Everybody, Alan Kat. So it should tell you that people are getting the message. And we know all those who are contesting, it's only Alan Kyerematen who can save this country from this mess that FDP has put us.
He further revealed that the elections will move into a runoff which will go in favor of the Afrafranto movement.
My hope for Alan winning this election from the one, it has not changed. And from the one, I've been saying that 2024 elections, no straight win. There's going to be a runoff, and I still stand by that. Once there's a runoff, Alan is the president of the Republic of Ghana.
Some party faithfuls who spoke with Joy News expressed why they are optimistic that Alan Kyerematen has what it takes to win the December polls and change Ghana's destiny.
The mama papa ni mujitia timi mani abere say tambia mehwe TV ametie ni bia na say Obama ma ba ese me so makoyo obatan ti se obi so Obama ma de enta me so me ni menua no ma ye nyina yenko na ye ma papa ne ma no me so ma yasene ti eno ne ma hoden eni me nyina so pa so se ma eba e na wo ba no mani gisa ne hwehwe no
Kyerematen enyim bunu yisi nim hwe no ye can business resource centers atama no ye minister for trade and industry techima ha ebi wo ha ko kemike tampo abi wo ko atebubu amante a na juma oye ebi wo ho now here no fi ho Alan Kojo Kyerematen now no he's telling the youth of this country and about 70% of Ghana's population e mabunu the mabunu ade o mu nyina e aduma. And so Alan Kojo Kyerematen is telling the youth of this country, let us vote for him, and he's going to provide jobs
Reporting for Joy News, Anas Sabit, Tichiman.
Away from that, candidates representing the New Patriotic Party and the National Democratic Congress in the Zebila and Bongo constituencies have pledged to prioritize water, sanitation and hygiene initiatives, that is WASH initiatives, and climate change mitigation should they be elected in the upcoming elections. And they made these commitments during the town hall meetings organized by Water Aid Ghana to facilitate dialogue between the candidates and constituents regarding their policy positions on WASH and climate resilience. Upper East Regional Correspondent Albert Sorry reports.
Ghana organized the town hall meetings to provide a platform for the parliamentary candidates in their operational areas in Zebila and Bongo to present their positions on climate resilient water, sanitation and hygiene, WASH, respond to questions from community members, and commit to implementing climate-resilient WASH policies in response to petitions from the communities. In the Zebila constituency, the parliamentary candidate for the MPP, John Kurugu, and the NDC's candidate, Ebenezer Ndebila, emphasized the importance of investing resources and time to address critical issues of climate-resilient water, sanitation, and hygiene facilities.
In a rural district like ours, access to water is a problem, and in the same way is access to sanitation facilities. Many of us grew up by just running into the bush to do our own thing. And when I was running for primaries, I went to places where when they fetched the water for me to drink, it was very difficult for me. So count me in as your counterpart and advocate and a partner in water and sanitation.
To get to most of the health centers, there's no water in the health center. Patients come to the hospital, they go out defecating around the hospital or the health center. They come back, there's no water to even wash their hands. And so I have taken it up very seriously that if given the nod, I would work tirelessly to ensure that I lobby institutions of interest to make sure we provide water systems to most of our health facilities within the constituency or within the district.
In the Bongo constituency, the parliamentary candidates were unable to attend the town hall meetings and sent representatives who, on their behalf, assured the constituents of their commitment to WASH issues, emphasizing the challenges faced by their communities in terms of water access and environmental sustainability. The people of Zebila were generally satisfied with the commitment of their parliamentary candidates. However, their counterparts in Bongo said they were disappointed.
I was highly disappointed. I wanted they themselves to be here so that any question that I ask, I will hold them responsible if any of them happens to win the election. Because those that they sent to come and represent them did not even answer most of our questions.
Water Aid is able to give us a mechanized borehole, but it got to a time that we had a breakdown. So we took the machine to Tamale, and the cost we couldn't bear. So we wrote so many letters to Assembly, asking for their support, and we haven't heard anything from them. So I was expecting that the DC would have been here, so that I would ask her whether she's aware of that.
For Water Aid Ghana, as the election approaches, the focus on WASH and climate change underscores the urgent need for effective policies to enhance the well-being of residents in the Upper East region.
Water, hygiene and sanitation are essential to improving health outcomes and fostering sustainable development in our communities. Yet the effect of climate change continue to threaten access to basic services, especially for the most vulnerable among us. Water Aid Ghana believes that by working together, both communities, the candidates and other advocates, we can create a lasting solution.
Reporting for Joy News, Albert Sorry, Zebila.
Coming up next is Business Update.
Welcome to Business and our first story. Finance professor at Andrews University, Williams Pepra, says the outcome of the American election is likely to negatively impact trade relations between Ghana and the United States should a new government make policies that will tamper with existing trade activities between both countries. Speaking earlier on Business Live, Professor Pepra urged government to maintain an open door policy, no matter the outcome of the elections, to prevent any possible pressure on the economy.
For instance, we know that we benefited from AGUA, and this relationship is still ongoing. As a country, we may have to keep an open door to ensure that this trade relationship still exists. When it comes to foreign aid and policies, we know that both parties, Democrats and Republicans, have their own policies, but we've noticed that President Trump is focusing more on domestic agendas. So there is a kind of fear that when he becomes a president, other nations may suffer. But this will not override the overall international relationship. So there is a major concern in that effect. And when it comes to the issue of security, we also know that the U.S. normally collaborates with a lot of countries in gathering security information. So that kind of relationship will still be there. Whoever be the president, we also have to keep an eye on that relationship. What really may affect Ghana is the point of trade, whether either of the president will be having a policy that is going to affect AGUA, and that will be a major impact on us.
Well, the equity base of Ghana's insurance industry recorded a significant expansion in 2023, growing by 24% from 4.5 billion Ghana cedis in 2022 to 5.52 billion in 2023. This was revealed in the 2024 Bank of Ghana Financial Stability Review. The following report highlights key trends in the industry for 2023. We apologize for the lack of sound in that clip, but up next is our currency market. Well, that's our recap of business. Handing over back to Sweetie Abochi.
Benjamin, and it's a wrap for the AM News on the AM show. You don't want to miss news review because Kojo Poku is energy analyst and Wisdom Dugbe is financial analyst. They're both joining us to review the newspapers and the stories in there and how it resonates with you and I. Keep watching.
Welcome back. Time now for the news review. And here we are, decked in our beautiful colors. Someone looking noir, the other one looking brun foncé.
Nice.
And
every time you wear it, I'm tempted to say it's a new suit, who it is. But It's not new, but...
Blanc Foncé ou bien café.
Oh, okay. Let's bring in our guest now. I don't know what you just said.
Okay, so in French, when they use foncé, it's more like, you see when you want to say navy blue. So bleu foncé.
Oh.
So kind of like a darker shade, but this is actually café. Coffee.
Benjamin Akapo.
But you know, some quick thoughts before we bring in our guests. I think this spate of robbery is becoming something. And I'm not just referencing what we've been talking about. Just yesterday, a friend was telling me that she's been on leave. She gets back to work and finds out someone in her office, you know, closed from work. And I'm talking day, around 5-something, 6 p.m. Person boards an Uber, I don't know, or some other vehicle. I don't know what the arrangement was, but there were other people in the vehicle. To cut a long story short, they took everything. Her bag, her phone, everything. She was stranded. A good Samaritan had to give her, and this person is an expat, if you like, from a different African country. So you can imagine the trauma. She had to, a stranger had to give her money to get home. And then she had to call her sister from someone's, you know. So it's becoming...
Was she robbed at gunpoint, or they just stole the things?
I think that there was threat of, you know, harm, you know, and then... But it's becoming, I mean, day, this is not night. Day.
What's emboldening these robbers? I mean, is it the arms that they're getting? Is it that they think the security personnel that are supposed, the police, cannot, you know, face them off or put them to book if they are, you know, captured? I don't know what's going on.
I mean, we saw that at Shaiman, the vehicle supposedly used for that Cabex jewelry robbery, purportedly in Ashaiman, as some people have suggested. Whether it was stolen or whatever, no one knows. But some have also alluded to the harsh economic times that they could account for that. But you see, that is no justification. You can't say, because we are all suffering. We can't all pick up guns and say we're going to. No, you can't do that.
These days, I'm trying not to say we are all suffering, because, Benjamin, there are people in this country who are not suffering.
You're right.
How can you
when they said we should tighten our belts,
yes,
we are in this together.
We are not all suffering. Let's
remember,
ask our guests
we are in this together. We are not in this together.
But, of course, it's a Tuesday. Joining us is your favorite. I hope we are favorite. I hope yours as well. Dio. We have Wisdom Dogbe joining us via Zoom, and Kojo Poku. Kojo Poku is energy analyst, and Wisdom Dogbe is financial analyst.
So I'll say this before you go on. They are our favorite duo when they behave. When they don't behave, they are not our favorite duo.
Well,
if they behave today,
it wouldn't be a good behavior when you start off by blaming our movie.
They will be our favorites when they...
You are welcome.
When they are on their best behavior.
Well,
I knew I would get Kojo. I just knew I would get Kojo.
By 7:15, we will know whether or not you are a favorite duo. But let's start with you, Kojo.
It's good to poke fun at you sometimes. I like it when...
It's okay to see you too, Ben. And it's okay that you guys are dressed like somebody died yesterday. I mean, you guys should bring some color. You guys should bring some color to the show. I mean, black and dark navy blue.
Says the man in Fugu who's...
Kojo, that means you've not been paying attention.
Well, I pay a lot of attention. Don't come and tell me black is the new red, whatever you guys want to talk about.
Okay, let's get into your thoughts this morning for us on the AM show. Kojo Poku, since you started waxing lyrical, let's go with you. What is your 2 minutes take?
Well, my 2 minutes take is that, look, we finally entered the great Republic of Ashanti, and we are here, came yesterday, and the talk, the expectation, and all the hype is being lived. We got here, and the first 3 constituencies that we did, we were livid. You know, if anybody think that the great elephant has run to the bush, they are dreaming. Ashanti is still the backbone of the great elephant party. And yesterday was a testament when we did Achuma Mpanua and we do Nkobeja. And we saw the numbers that came out to meet us, and then the excitement in people's faces. That is, for me, a great sight to see. But let me quickly take a dash to what Ben said earlier about the spat of insecurity in the country. I think it's very sad. Everybody watching this show this morning should know that there is a vast amount of CCTV cameras deployed around the country, and that is to aid with some of these things. It is aiding in the investigation, but I think the security agencies, if they are watching, should know that those CCTV should go a step further. Now there is AI that detects certain things because there are vast amounts of CCTVs and no one eye or two eye or human eyes can watch all of them at the same time. But there is technology abound that allows that whenever there is anything untoward happening in any of the CCTV cameras, the CCTV or the programming behind it is such that it pops up in the screen. So let's say somebody pops up, pulls out a gun, somebody drives in the on the illegal lane, or somebody does or something. All those things are there, and the AI pulls it up so that police immediately have an attention. It exists in the UK, it exists in the US, where some of these technologies are being used. And I think it's time, after we have deployed the CCTV cameras, we deploy the technology to help, to let it help us detect some of these things in real time, other than using it for investigation.
All right. Thank you so much, Kojo Opoku. Let's go to Wisdom Dogbe now. What would be your take on Wisdom? Morning.
Good morning, sweetie, and good morning to your viewers. The armed robbery situation is definitely a big one as well, right? The folks that I talked to here in the US, Ghanaians, of course, one of the issues they have about visiting home or even coming back to live in Ghana is the security situation. So I hope that things would improve economically and that would discourage armed robbery. And also our leaders would, our security agencies would do more to keep this menace in the bud, you know, to protect businesses and individuals. But let me digress a little bit here. I heard this argument about, you know, deploying the military during the election. And I just don't understand why we need to deploy the military to polling stations and also to coalition centers. Where is the police and other EC security officials? Do we not have enough police officers and election officials in the country anymore? I don't think this is good for Ghana's democracy. It is likely an erosion of our democratic norms. If you have soldiers at these election centers, I think it can create a perception of, you know, militarizing our democracy, which most likely, I think it can undermine public trust in the election process. Also, voters may feel intimidated, you know, by military presence, which can potentially also surprise turnout and adversely, you know, influence the free expression of political will. And I also just want to understand this. What is the military's expertise in election processes? Doesn't it require specialized knowledge to monitor elections, such as understanding of election laws and voting procedures and the integrity of the electoral process? Do our soldiers, do they have all of this necessary training and expertise in these areas? I think that the military's role, their primary role, sweetie, is national defense and security. And I don't see how that aligns with a specialized need of monitoring an election.
Well, thank you so much. And
since our brother is asking,
in a bit, we'll come to you. So we have we are done, and in at 7:15. So let's manage the time. I'll get into the newspapers, and then in your review, you can comment on what he said. But let's start with the newspapers. I'll start with the Daily Graphic newspaper. On the front page, BECE grading system unchanged in spite of curriculum change. That is according to WAEC. Commits to peaceful elections. Ebrihine urges stakeholders. Sam Jonah, others brainstorm at Graphic Development Department series today. Glico Pension presents 3-bedroom house to best teacher and special supplement on 8th Ghana Energy Awards. Let me start with this story on the curriculum because it's the latest making airwaves these days. So the West African Examination Council says the change in curriculum at the junior high school level does not come with a change in the grading system. It has therefore insisted that it has not introduced any new grading system for the Basic Education Certificate examination as being speculated. And, quote, the Stenine grading system is what has been used since the first BEC was written in 1990. WAEC has not issued any statistics indicating the pass or failure rate among students. And this is coming from the head of public relations of WAEC, John Kapi, as he told the Daily Graphic. Let's move on to other stories now. I'll do 3 and then I'll come to you, gentlemen. Slavery reparations, not about transfer of cash, says Lamy. And this is coming in Nigeria. So UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy has said the concept of reparation for former colonial nations affected by slavery, quote, is not about the transfer of cash, unquote. In his first comment since 56 Commonwealth leaders signed a statement saying the time had come for a conversation about reparations, Lammy told the BBC that was not the debate people want to have. The UK government previously ruled out paying reparations for slavery, and Downing Street said its position included other forms of non-financial reparatory justice too. So that's that. Who occupies the White House? The U.S. votes today. The story is here. The world's attention will be focused on the United States on Tuesday, that's today. More than 240 million citizens vote in an election whose results could prove decisive, not just for their nation, but for millions around the world. Will Kamala Harris get the bid to be the first female president of the United States? We will all find out later. And one last story before we go. Next government must review VAT regime. That's Association of Ghana Industries. That's what they're saying. So the Association of Ghana Industries says the next government must streamline the value-added tax regime into a more efficient tax system to support industrial growth. And the call follows an engagement with the major political parties to cause them to integrate a VAT review into their manifestos as part of measures to create a more conducive environment for businesses to thrive, boost innovation, and generate jobs and revenue for economic transformation. There are so many other stories here. EC not printing excess ballot papers. Let me add that before I come to you. So the Electoral Commission has called on members of the public to disregard claims that excess ballot papers are being printed for the elections. It explains that aside from the number of registered voters on the poll book for each polling station, the EC had agreed with the political parties and other stakeholders to print 2% extra ballots, as had been done and has been the convention. And the Deputy Commissioner in charge of Corporate Services, Dr. Eric Bosman-Asari, who made the call, was speaking to journalists after he had led an EC delegation to take the media to some of the printing houses working on the ballot papers for the December 7th elections. It's great that the EC is walking us through all these processes, but let me come to you, our guest, to review these stories. I'll start with you, Wisdom Dugbe.
So I think this U.S. elections is a nail-biter at this stage. Both the Republicans and Democrats are anxious tonight because no one really knows what the outcome of the election will be. The polls are too close, right, to give us any indication of how things will end up. And I find it unbelievable that it is this close, even on the night of the elections. But the point I would like to make here is that this U.S. election should be very important to Ghanaian businesses, just as it is for other businesses across the globe. Because whatever happens in the U.S., consequently, that impacts the global economy as well. The part I want Ghanaian businesses to be watchful about, especially those who export to the U.S., they should watch out for Trump's tariff policy. He's proposed slapping significant tariffs on all imports to the U.S. And this could adversely impact global supply chains and increase operating costs to these Ghanaian and global businesses and consumers in the U.S. It could lead to trade wars and worsen inflation and also lead to increased costs, just as I said, right, which would affect businesses globally. But when you look at the trade policies that Harris has proposed, her approach is more of a cooperative trade approach, right? Which would enhance the reliability of global supply chains and not directly increase cost of doing business with the U.S. and effectively, benefit international business, including Ghanaian exporters to the U.S. Okay. And also, Sweetie, if Trump wins, that may result in immediate market volatility, particularly, concerning trade policies. That will cause global markets to react. And because Trump is considered as a pro-business candidate, I think that sentiment may also cause some kind of a short-term gains in the market. You will likely see the S&P 500 rally, at least in the short term. And then it will cool off pretty quickly when the market players, when they start to digest the potential impact of his higher tariff policy. On the other side, if VP Harris should win, that could mean market stabilization in the long term because investors will adapt to a more predictable a stable international economic environment. And so the status quo may be preserved with the Harris win. So I think Ghana and Ghanaian businesses and global businesses, they should be on the lookout for this one. It's a big one.
Okay, thank you. Kojo Poku.
You see, Wisdom should be the Joy News correspondent in the U.S., commenting on U.S. issues, not commenting on Ghana issues, because you can see how good he is in telling you what's happening in the U.S. Look, Wisdom is the Papa Shabu. You know, when we're kids, there's Papa Samu who stayed.
Are we reviewing Wisdom Dogbe, or are we reviewing the news stories?
Let me get to my point, please. Let me get to my point. Look, Wisdom has never witnessed elections in Ghana. When you talk about military, no, hold on. You have it. If you have, you wouldn't say the things you said about military. In every election, we've had military at the polling station providing security. What happens in Ghana is that the security services, customs, prisons, military, police, everybody that's part of the security services provide security, and they are in the outer cordon. So all the things you are talking about monitoring, military don't monitor elections in Ghana. That is why I'm saying that you don't know what happens in Ghana. The police, the security services do not monitor elections. What they do is provide security in the outer cordon. So please, let's put that to rest. Let's stop these fear-mongering of military. They have always, since 92 till today, military has always been part of election security. But let me land, please. Don't interfere me. Don't interject. The second issue I want to talk about is the VAT. The VAT, as the group wanted to talk about, yes, Dr. Bawumia has proposed to collapse the various tiers of the VAT. And if they read our manifesto, the MPP manifesto, they will realize that Dr. Bawumia has proposed that he's going to have a flat rate tax in various areas and collapse the various grades of VAT. So it will be very simpler for everybody to calculate. My last point will be on our kids getting smarter. I think when people don't seem to see how kids these days are smart, when we were kids, the things that we could do, the kids today can do it 10 times over. So when kids are doing well in school, people should not attribute it to people thinking that the system has been shaped or reduced or whatever. Kids today are very, very smart.
Okay. And I don't think the argument is whether or not we are opposed to kids being smarter, but is it following due process, Kojo Poku?
Well, they are smart.
The argument really is if all stakeholders who were supposed to be consulted, if they were indeed consulted, case in point, Parliament. Yesterday, we heard Dr. Clement Park saying that there was no such consultation with Parliament Education
Committee. But nothing has been done. How can you consult for nothing being done? WAEC has come out to put it to bed that nothing has been done. So why the consultation?
Hold on for me. Wisdom, you wanted to react briefly, and then Ben will come in.
Kojo, would you agree with me that the presence of the military in places could be a deterrent for some people coming over there?
No, it's not. It has never been.
True, right?
It has never, my brother, you've never voted in Ghana.
Okay, let me explain something to you here. Kojo, listen, let me explain something to you. I grew up in the barracks. My dad was a soldier in the Ghana Army. I'm very much close to soldiers. My two brothers were soldiers, right? And I went to Legon. I voted. My first voting was actually at Legon. And I never saw the military policing the ballot papers. It's never happened, right? So if you're saying it now, I'm not disputing that it happened somewhere else, but does that make it right?
Okay.
Is that what we want?
Okay, gentlemen, hold on a second.
That's in our democracy.
We are happy to come back to you in a bit. Hold on a second. Benjamin Akakpo.
Well, this bit about, especially from where I sit, where I come, this bit about the military getting involved, I do know that prisons personnel, even fire service and all of that, find a way, because it's actually a mechanism to ensure that we have some security apparatus, the numbers across the country, right? I think it's more of a numbers thing. It's not necessarily that military people have to be there, which also means that if we're able to sort out the security situation and we ensure that the Ghana Police Service, especially, is able to deal with matters. After all, if you go to Ejisu and the other things that happened, when did the military step in? When purportedly the police was unable to handle the situation. The military, per their training, are trained for one thing. That is why sometimes, whether it's at Shaiman or elsewhere, when you've seen them, sometimes they act a certain way and people don't understand. It's because their training is not for crowd control. It's not for this or that. That is for the police service. And my point also is that if we get things right, the military should not be, within the precincts of, but it's also because of the sort of history, checkered history we have, right? If we get things right and you know that there are barracks on this end or that end, if something happens in some locality, then you can call on the military to defuse the situation. But being around within the precincts and all of that, I feel is unnecessary.
Ben, would you agree that?
And let me just land. There have been numerous reports. I'm reading this one from the DIIS in the UK, for example, and that is the Danish Institute for International Studies. There's another one from the UK, pointing to the fact, and this is what it says. Because it is a question of how, at least in our situation, not if the armed forces have a role to play during the elections, the government should refrain from deploying soldiers in ways that can be interpreted as politically motivated. There's a whole thread under that. So if it can be avoided, I feel moving forward, it's a point we should get to. We shouldn't normalize it like, oh, the military should always be there. Do we see that in other countries? So that's just the point I wanted to
ask you if you'd agree that the mere presence of military personnel not so close to these polling stations would deter recalcitrant or people who, have bad intent to harm someone or cause some violence or disrupt the free flow of elections. Wouldn't their presence deter these should I call them criminals from?
Should we?
Just a second.
If we have things right in our security system, should the presence of the police not do same?
Well, so there are some gaps there that we.
In other words, what you're saying is some people will not respect the Ghana Police Service or members of certain security groups when they see them. They will only respect the military. There's a problem.
Not what I'm saying, but what it is. People truly.
No, but I'm saying that if that is the case, there is a problem there.
So
and it's not a problem of you need the military. Yeah. It's a bigger problem.
It's a bigger problem. Kojo, Wisdom Dogwe, that was you.
Yeah, so it's you don't need a police over. You don't need the soldiers over there. That's actually the role of the police services. There is the risk of political interference, including partisan perception, because whoever orders the military to go monitor days, that is...
They are not monitoring elections.
Oh, Kojo, hold on. We'll come back. We'll come to
Kojo,
you.
You don't want to be interjected.
Kojo, hold on.
You want to interject someone. Please. Let him make his point. Let him make his point.
Stop using that word.
Please, let him make his point.
Monitoring election.
Let him make his point.
Change the word. They are not monitoring elections.
Listen.
But this is an international program. Let's use the right words. Military are not monitoring elections.
Kojo, do you realize that we are each taking a turn to speak? And we are happy to listen to you.
Let's correct these things, please.
The next time he interjects you, I'll allow him to go ahead. Wisdom, go ahead.
So all I was going to say is whoever deploys the military, the public will see it as the military doing the bidding of that government. I don't think that is the right image we want our people to see. It's not good for public image. It's not good for our democracy, Kojo. You should be able to agree with me on this one, Kojo.
No. How do I agree if you're using the wrong
words? We have the police. They are tasked to do this. If they have a shortfall in numbers, just like Ben said, fine, we can bring the other security agencies to help them. Now we have the police. Why are we now bringing the soldiers?
All right. Yeah. Let's do some other stories. We have about 10 minutes to go.
Yes, Mr. Bochi, can we move on? I'm not going to go into this with
Benjamin, let's do your paper now.
He doesn't understand our system, so let's move on.
Okay.
Let's get into the Daily Guide newspaper. FDA GSA launch Common Certificate Initiative. There's I'll prioritize rail industry. That's according to Dr. Baumia. Nana Faye's election prophecies, and Burkinabe gets life for German wife and daughter's murder. Police invite applicants for medicals, and NHIS combats illegal charges with e-pharmacy. On the back page, Kotoko coach explains Lion loss, and Fernandez begs Ten Hag after sacking. There's also Kurt charges satellites to clinch 2025 AFCON, and Mourinho blasts referees in ferocious rant. Now, Jose Mourinho did not hold back in a ferocious rant following Fenerbahce's 3-2 Super League win against Trabzonspor on Sunday, accusing the VAR of drinking tea instead of officiating, and saying he would not have joined the club had he known the full truth about refereeing in Turkey. And I guess that has stoked some ire. And staying with sports, my very own Manchester United, Bruno Fernandes has revealed he called Erik ten Hag to apologize after the Dutchman was sacked by Manchester United. Fernandes scored a penalty as United drew 1-1 with Chelsea in their first Premier League game since ten Hag's dismissal on Monday. The midfielder said he had spoken to his former boss following the decision and admitted the players must take their share of responsibility for ten Hag's departure. And I think that is that is a captain extraordinaire, when you can also accept your responsibility, your end of shortfalls in anything that happens. Something that I know some people can't do, because everything they do is right and everything someone else does is wrong. But let's get into other stories. President Akufo-Addo has appealed to the clergy to refrain from making prophecies about the upcoming December 7 elections, emphasizing the need for respect and caution during this critical period. He urged religious leaders in the country to guide their congregations in promoting peace and stability. In a speech read on his behalf by the Minister of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs, Stephen Asamoah Boateng, at the Agent of Peace campaign organized by the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council on Sunday, the president stressed the importance of decorum. It's a good call by the president. I salute him for that. But at the same time, I always ask, when we call for these things, the very people calling for them on different ends, what have they done in the past? What are they doing now? And another thing I find very problematic, and I keep saying it, and someday it will catch up with us, chiefs and their continuous endorsements of different sides of the political coin. Someday, may it not come back to haunt them. And let's see. Lawyers must prevent illegal pressure on judiciary. That's according to the AG, who has called on lawyers to prevent and condemn each and every act of illegal pressure on the judiciary. He has also urged them to be on guard against unscrupulous persons who undermine the independence of the judiciary by tarnishing its image unjustifiably. You know, I've got to the point where it's become kind of like Sweetie Abochi. You know, where some pastors, you do something and they say everything, touch not my anointed, touch not my anointed. Our judiciary is also, I mean, this is my area, but I'm beginning to feel, and that's why Martin Amidu has also come out and said that sometimes the GBA should not blindly follow the Chief Justice or feel beholden to the Chief Justice. But I'll leave them to do whatever they feel is right to do. Let me just see whether I'll prioritize rail industry. Bawumia, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia kickstarted the final lap of his campaign in the Ashanti region to a tumultuous welcome yesterday. Everywhere he went, Bawumia, who is also the MPP presidential candidate in the upcoming December general election, was mobbed by hordes of party supporters. And of course, he was talking about prioritizing the rail industry. Joe Wise talks about the MP's vacant seats. We are showing our worst side. I read an article by Professor Kweku Azan just a few years ago when Professor Michael Quay was speaker. And he spoke then, and, you know, there was support from some members, stalwarts of the MPP today. But interestingly, now it's different strokes for different folks, because I guess there are different parties involved. But anyway, those are my quick thoughts. Kojo, starting with you, your reflections.
Well, you see, I think that, Ben, you make a statement, and I want to ask a very simple question. Why can't chiefs be part of politics? Because a 92 Constitution said so? And who wrote the 92 Constitution? The 92 Constitution was written because some people feared the very people that basically started politics in Ghana. The democracy that we have in Ghana was started by chiefs. Look, if you look at the UP tradition was started by who? Bafo Akoto, who was a linguist at the palace of Otumfo. The Northern People's Party, which is the Northern people, was started by who? So let's stop this thing about, because 92 Constitution says that chiefs cannot get into election. Everybody says that what chiefs should not. Chiefs have every right to endorse people that, because look, right now chiefs don't go to war. I'm a royal. I'm a Hineba, right? And my father is a chief, and there's a video going around where my father is basically endorsing Alan. But is it right? He has a right to. Okay? So the point is this. Let's not make it look like chiefs who now ask for development for their people. They are the custodian of whatever goes on in their area, cannot see and look somebody in the eye and say, you've done well, I think my people should support you. We should stop that thing, because the 92 Constitution was written for a particular reason, to basically suppress a certain opinion in this country. And I think it's very wrong. Let me move on to my next point.
Please, are you done? You asked a question. No, you said you were posing a question to me.
No, you can ask the question before I move on.
No, you said you were posing a question to me. I was waiting for you to land before you go on to other things. Don't mix issues, Kojo. The 19, you asked me a question. Let me respond. It's not a monologue. Remember, it's a dialogue. The first point, the 1992 Constitution talks about the fact that chiefs should not get involved in partisan politics. That is why they still have a right to go and vote. I have said here before, if you're a right-thinking chief, and I'm not insulting the chieftaincy institution, on the back of some of the happenings, on the back of even what the president said, you people in this area did not, I selected, your MP, made him a deputy minister, you did not vote for him in the next election, and so I have not developed your area. True or not, the point is, you don't need to put yourself in that situation. Act like a businessman. If Asemesi comes to you, oh, nice, you meet my people, you go. Asemesi in Soba, and the person goes. What does it change? If you can laud this side, you can laud that side. After all, there are good things the MPP has done. There are bad things the MPP has done. There are good things the NDC has done. There are bad things the NDC has also done. The point is, partisan politics, where you are openly saying, and because of this, I'll vote for you. My people should vote for you. Are you the conscience of the people? That is the point.
No, but
so don't get it twisted. Go on with your other points.
The politics in Ghana were started by the chiefs. So why do you tell them they can't get involved in it? That's the point.
How did the chiefs start the politics?
You
because
might not
of what
agree
you said?
with it, Ben. You might not agree with it. We have a constitution that says otherwise. For me, I disagree. So let's move on.
That is fine to disagree, but the constitution says what it is. The constitution is for all of us. Until it changes, it is what it is. And you can't change that. I can't change that. Go ahead with your points.
I know very well, because the constitution says one thing, and we have a speaker of parliament who decided to suspend parliament senate, don't we? But let's move on. Let's now go on to what I was going to talk about, the left back of Man U. We know when Chelsea was playing Man United, I had the Man U friend sitting next to me and said, this left back, he plays so well. Why did the coach keep keeping him on the bench? Right? And apparently the player is a very good player who played so well during Chelsea and Man U. But the coach, the former coach, has kept him on the bench ever since he was signed. Coaches sometimes are to be blamed for their own mishaps as well, because sometimes I don't think they always make the right decisions. Prophecy on presidential elections, that is something that you should talk about, and that is something that should be in the constitution. Priests definitely should stop doing these prophecies, and the next constitution, we should put a priest in there to stay away from partisan politics. I rest my case.
Wisdom. When I come to Ghana, let's catch lunch. We have a lot to discuss off air.
I will avoid you every time.
Well, this is one issue that I tend to agree with the president on when it comes to the election prophecies. But the challenge I have with asking the clergy not to release prophecies about the election, the challenge with that is, how do you stop the Lord from speaking to his people through his prophets, through things yet to come, right? So though I can see where the president is coming from, I'm also hesitant to say there should be no prophecies at all. That is not in the hands of the president or any man. I think this applies more to, the false prophets and stomach prophets than to the real oracles of God, who speak the true mind of God. That said, aside prophecies, I think the clergy has an oversized role to play in this election to ensure that the election is free without violence and Ghana gets to maintain our democracy. I said that because the clergy can provide moral guidance in terms of providing a moral lens through which political issues are examined and encouraging ethical decision-making among their congregants and promoting justice and compassion, when it comes to governance. Of course, the clergy, they can also mobilize their communities around the important issues and use their pulpits to advocate for change in a bit of unbiased advocacy, and also provide more spiritual perspective on this.
Right.
I think the nation is looking up to these clergy folks to help with unity and healing than prophecy, especially if these are only sentimental prophecies.
All right. I have just some headlines, but before that, Sweetie Abochi, come in with...
No, we do have to go. Just the front page of the New Republic says, from puppet to president, can Bawumia overcome Akufo-Addo's shadow? And the overseer has Ghana is doomed if Ghanaians fail to vote out NPP, says Ato Forson. In this politically charged climate that we're experiencing right now, I think editors and everyone really should be circumspect in their reportage and how they caption these headlines. But that's all from me. Then.
Graphic business. Staple food prices soar. Dry spell hits hard at Tamale traders. That's in the Graphic Business newspaper. T-bill rates hit 8-month high. 91-day bill reaches 26.56%. Economy Times, CD continues to depreciate. You remember recently the Bank of Ghana governor said he could drive it down to 10 cedis to the dollar, but maybe because of sustainability reasons, it may not be the best option. And second, DDEP impacts financial sector marginally. Players optimistic of fast recovery. This line was not players optimist. Anyway, Economy Times, you could do better with the grammar. And that's how we're capping off the review. But let me also wish a very happy birthday. In fact, let us wish a very happy birthday to Kweku Asante, our very own...
Bismarck Kweku Asante.
The Sheikh himself, Bismarck Kweku Asante, our very own parliamentary correspondent or reporter. He also variously goes to court as well. Fantastic guy. You see him slim like that walking around, but Obeye Jumanini na. Kweku Asante, we salute you. The other day I caught him with some biscuits. I don't know. We have to investigate those biscuits. And there's also
Patrick Gomez, backdoor, our director.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Patrick Gomez. We wish you long life, good health, and plenty money so that you can be happy for Ghana, you know. Congratulations on this new age.
Don't you like his braided hair?
Yeah.
His braided hair.
Maybe we'll bring
final closing remarks.
No, please. That's all that time will allow us for. Thank you so much for joining us, though.
You read some topics we didn't comment on. You use our time.
We will have another time.
But you don't have to react to everything, though. We are not giving wisdom or you any time to react. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. So, but thank you. Your fugu is lovely, though. Your batakari is lovely.
Again, okay?
All right.
Thank you, Wisdom Dogbe. Thank you, Kojo Poku. Time now for us to head out of here. Sports is up next. And when we return, more action on the AM show.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to AM Sports here with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullah. After 9 matches gone in the ongoing Ghana Premier League, Bibiani Gold Stars sits at the summit of the Premier League table with 19 points and yet to suffer a defeat. Well, many people are expecting that their run will continue all the way up to lifting the Ghana Premier League title, just as we witnessed from Samatex, one of the few clubs to have done so after a few years in the top flight. However, head coach of Bibiani Gold Stars, Frimpong Manso, insists that people should not be expectant about the team's success at the end of the Premier League campaign. My colleague Daniel Cranton has more in this report.
After escaping relegation from the top flight by just 3 points last season, Bibiani Gold Stars have enjoyed a flying start to this season's Ghana Premier League campaign. 3 points clear at the top and only 3 goals conceded after 9 games. Frimpong Manso's side are flying high.
Yeah, it tells us that in terms of attacking, we are doing well, and defensively, we are also doing well. So for me, it will urge us to continue to do or improve on what we've been doing. That gives us that result. So for me, I'm happy about that.
A strong home form has historically proven to be a huge factor for top performers in the Ghana League over the years. Gold Stars have so far clocked 13 out of a possible 15 points at home, conceding just once.
That is a very good thing, to be able to win at home. And for now, we will want to continue that win. We have the fans behind us. So for me, I think we will do our best.
Just 9 games into the season, and fans of BBME are already beginning to dream about the possibility of this being a title-winning campaign. Forward Charles Kamara Jemfi says the playing body remain focused on the task despite the chatter.
It doesn't add any pressure on us because we know where we are heading towards to, so this is not gonna be anything that's gonna be pressure on we, the players, or the playing body, or the technical team, because we know where we are heading towards to, so it's not adding any pressure on us.
Frimpong Manso is not too bothered about the talk of the title and believes it's a bit too early to start dreaming.
I mean, like I've been saying, that it's early days yet. It's 9 out of 34, and you cannot say, oh, everything is done. No, although we will continue to work harder like we've been doing since day one. So for me, I'm not thinking about the title. What I'm thinking of is our next game.
Maybe it's just in his nature to be modest, but Frimpong Manso isn't reading too much into his Manager of the Month nomination for October either.
No, not at all. No, it's something that for me, it's good to do to be, but I'm not looking at. I'm looking at the overall picture, you know. Although that also motivates me or our team, our technical team, that maybe we are on course. But for me, I think that is not the objective now.
Let's go to the camp of Kumasi Asante Kotoko. They suffered back-to-back losses against bottom of the table Premier League side Legon Cities and also Heart of Lions, which happened on March 9 at the Obuasi Lankley Sports Stadium. Well, since the beginning of the new Premier League season, Kumasi Asante Kotoko has struggled to score more than 2 goals in each of its matches. My colleague, Victor Chutamaklu, has been explaining what probably the challenge of the Porcupine Warriors might be.
So on Sunday, Kumasi Asante Kotoko lost to Pando Hearts of Lions by 1-0. That result means they've now suffered successive defeats, having lost to Legon Cities by 1-0 in midweek at the University of Ghana Stadium. After the game, Kotoko coach Prosper Natiogum said he lost because his players were tired. He used the word fatigue. But if you look at the numbers, his explanation may not be consistent with decisions that he himself has been taking, because in the past month, Kotoko have essentially drawn from a pool of 15 players for the 6 matches that they have played in 4 weeks. So if you have registered 33 outfield players and 4 goalkeepers for the league, and yet in the period when the team has played more matches than they've done all season, you're still drawing from a pool of 15, you then do not have the right to turn around and complain about fatigue or the fact that the squad is overstretched. So it is no surprise that the fans have not exactly been excited by that explanation from Prosper Natiogum. Now, one other thing the fans have been talking about, or complaining, if you like, is the fact that Kotoko are not scoring goals. Now, this season, Kotoko have played 9 matches. They've scored 8, which is to say that they have played more matches than they have scored goals. Against Legon Cities, they lost. They scored. Albert Yamwa scored in that game. He's one player who has contributed over 50% of the goals that Asante Kotoko has scored. He's actually scored 5 of the 8 goals that the team has scored. If you look at the next goal contributors, 2 other players have scored a goal each. Their individual tallies are exactly the same as own goals. So in essence, own goals have contributed as much or as many as the next goal contributors for Kotoko after Albert Samwa, which is not very impressive. And even in the period that Kotoko have scored the most goals, which is the last 5 weeks, it is only because they have played the most matches in that time. And again, they have scored fewer goals than matches that they have played. And so that is something that Prosper Natiogum has got to look at. And beyond even the goals and the fact that there are issues with the squad, the performances have not been exactly great. And at the risk of repeating ourselves, if you clip up anything from the previous games, Basake Holy Stars, Legon Cities, and now Lions, you will see traces of the same less unimpressive performances. And to go 3 consecutive games without a win against some of the worst performing teams. I mean, Holy Stars have not exactly been great this season. Legon Cities, before they played Kotoko, had not won a game all season. Pando Hearts of Lions had not won a game all season on the road, but they turn up against Asante Kotoko and they get the job done. word for Prosper Natiogum to ponder about.
Prosper Natiogum, take a look at your team and provide the answers to the questions being asked by the supporters of the club. Now, let's bring you highlights of how Legon Cities played Young Apostles at the Legon Sports Stadium on Monday.
There's another one delivered into the channel. Bit of Mr. Blue comes off the woodwork and is headed out by Suleimana. Our Young Apostles surviving that scare.
That was brilliant anticipation. They are finding spaces and connecting.
Oh, that was a chance that fell the way of Legon Cities, came off the woodwork. It tells you of his pedigree. But here comes Legon Cities. Albert Yeboah hits it for Kamal. Finds Jesse, lovely ball. Kamal! And that is stopped there by Masawudu. Joseph Amoah. Here it goes! And that is Legon Cities opener, Dennis Adola. And Legon Cities, for the second time in a row, have taken the lead. Fabulous strike. 21 years of age. Oh, just look at it. It was floated in from the right-hand side by Joseph Amoah. It wasn't really dealt with by Young Apostles. And the striker just hit. Interesting moment, and the fans really enjoying. Yes, Yaya, lovely run. This could be a lot of trouble. Yes, Yaya, could this be a second? Cuts it in, looking for a bit of space. And Yaya has got to Legon City second. Substitute. Did against Kumasi Asante Kotoko. And once again, he has lifted his guard. Turns it in. Oh, just look at it. When Suleimana and Masawudu definitely does not have the ability to reach it.
Now let's take you to Cape Coast, where the Gusa Games has been launched. It is the 28th edition of the University Sports Games. Well, my colleague, Erica Santi, has details in this report.
16 institutions will participate in the 28th edition of the Gusa Games, which is expected to attract about 4,000 student athletes. The biennial sporting event offers an opportunity for students to showcase and develop their talents. This year's Gusa Games will be held in January because of the December elections. The games will take place between January 3rd and 18th, 2025. Speaking at the launch of UCC 2024, the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Cape Coast, Professor Johnson Nyakubuampom, expressed UCC's readiness to host a successful event.
University sports serve as a powerful tool for promoting unity, discipline, and excellence. The sports are more than just games. They provide breeding ground for future leaders, innovators, and change makers. The skills and values nurtured through sports are teamwork, perseverance, leadership, and resilience, which are needed to drive national development. Our universities have long been the cradle of academic excellence. But it is time we also recognize and harness the potential of sports as a catalyst for national development.
Dr. Ibrahim Shaibu Tanku, the president of Gusa, applauded the university's management and the LOC for their preparation to ensure a memorable hosting of Gusa 2024. He urged the University of Cape Coast to ensure alternative training spaces for the games.
The Gusa Games, scheduled to ignite from January 3rd to January 18th, 2025, promises to bring together a multitude of talents and aspirations. Yet, as we gather here, we must recognize the unique context of this period. It coincides with Ghana's electoral processes, a cornerstone in our national democratic journey. We are aware that this timing may bring unforeseen challenges, especially if a runoff election takes place. To our dedicated organizers, I urge proactive measures. Could we explore flexible training schedules, alternative training spaces, or providing additional support to maintain our athletes' momentum?
The Vice-Chancellor of UCC, the GUSA President, and the LOC Chairperson, Professor Rosemond Boahene, jointly unveiled the official mascot, Ogua Suapon Okorie. Professor Boahene, on her part, emphasized the importance of sports and athletics.
In the coming weeks, our athletes will prepare tirelessly, supported by coaches, mentors, and friends, to represent their universities and personal aspirations. Our community, in turn, will be there to encourage them, cheer them on, and witness the fruits of their hard work and commitment.
The UCC 2024 Games will see athletes participate in games like football, athletics, volleyball, hockey, handball, basketball, among others. For Joy Sports, my name is Eric Asante, UCC.
And Ruben Amorim will be starting his role at Manchester United on November 11. Let's bring you the full fixtures of the UEFA Champions League matches that will be happening later tonight. And also on Wednesday, we'll have PSG come up against Girona, and then Bratislava will come up against Dynamo. Borussia Dortmund will play Sturm Graz, and then Bologna will play Monaco. Celtic will play RB Leipzig. Lille will come up against Juventus. Liverpool will play Bayer Leverkusen. Real Madrid will play AC Milan, and Sporting Lisbon comes up against Manchester City. So these are the fixtures of UEFA Champions League for tonight. For now, we do have more sports stories on myjoyonline.com.
Here we are, ready for our big stories this morning. And we are taking a look at this new curriculum that has been introduced or rolled out. The Ghana Education Service, the Ministry of Education, they've rolled out this new curriculum for second cycle schools through the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, that is NACA. And this service is beginning this academic year, and we're going to look at what is expected to redefine the future of education in the country. And they say it is nurturing critical thinking and creativity. But it has also come under some controversy because minority in Parliament, or should I say Parliament, the deputy ranking member on Parliament's Education Committee says he or the committee was not consulted before the rollout. So let's delve into the issue right here on the AM show. Our guest this morning is Mr. Kofi Asare, the Executive Director for Africa Education Watch. Thank you, sir, for joining us on this conversation.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, and good morning to your audience.
Okay, so this new curriculum for second cycle schools, we know that it's been structured to shift the focus from rote learning and memorization to critical thinking, but there's also some concerns that have been raised. So you tell us, first of all, what is your take on this matter before we get surgical with the issues?
Well, I think that the curriculum is well intended. It is in response to global trends in human capital development and the need to ensure that we produce a youth that are ready for the world of work, imbibed with the necessary digital 21st century skills, and have the necessary national values, or if you like, value-based education, to be competitive within the global arena. Bear in mind that in a couple of years' time, Africa will host majority of the world's youthful population. About 60% of Africa will be below the age of 24. And the whole world will be relying on Africa to produce the critical manpower to drive socio-economic transformation. and Ghana is part. And so whether or not Africa and Ghana succeeds in becoming the hub of the world's youthful manpower depends on the quality of young people we churn out from our training institutions, especially at the secondary level. So this is the context within which we have this conversation.
Okay. I would like to know what your understanding of the key changes that have been made to the curriculum is as we speak, and also for the benefit of those watching who are concerned about this. What is your understanding of what this new curriculum is? I mean, the groupings, these 4 areas, A, B, C, and D, and how you select select subjects, select the related area, elective, and all that. What is your understanding of it? Walk us through that.
The new curriculum is not just about selection. It appears that's what everybody's interested in. Right? It's not just about the selection. The selection gets a bit technical, but if you are doing a particular program, and you're in a particular school, not all schools will offer every program you are saying here. Okay, not every school will do STEM as a program. There are very few of them, and so the permutations sometimes become confusing because, we are starting. Okay, we are starting with only Form 1 students. Yeah. So you don't expect that everybody becomes an expert at this point. These subject combinations have gone through lots of reviews in the past 2 years or in the past 1.5 years. So every school has the competency to deliver training or teaching in the areas that students are allowed to select. And guidance is given, while you are in school as well to understand the permutations. Okay. Now let me also indicate that this curriculum is not, it's not useful just because of the subject permutations. This curriculum appreciates that learners enter secondary school with various levels of learning attainment, and that it would be necessary to provide remedial interventions, especially in the foundational subjects, maths and English, to learners who may have deficits, in learning attainment or in proficiency, if you like, in the subjects, bringing them from the basic school to the secondary school. And so it has a remedial curriculum, let me put it that way. There's a remedial curriculum for maths and English, where a diagnostic test, will be undertaken upon entry. And then based on the test outcome.
Are you saying that before you even begin Form 1, you take a diagnostic test to assess where to place you?
Not where to place you, to assess whether you require remedial intervention in maths and English or not. And so that will afford the opportunity of deploying the interventions and targeting them at those who require that particular intervention. So it enables differentiated learning to take place because you identify students who have peculiar needs, especially in maths and English. So that is one good thing about this. Assuming that all of us in senior high school 1 have the same or equal or are within the same range of proficiency when it comes to maths and English, it's wrong. So that is one thing that this curriculum does. It is not a straitjacket one. Within the context of it not being straitjacket, by being flexible to respond to the exigencies and also the need of the learner, the curriculum also has what we call a very, very flexible subject permutation that enables one to determine their pathway. When you get to secondary school, many a times, you may not even know what you want to do in the university. You may not have fully, when I was in secondary school, I didn't know what I wanted to do in the university. You understand? It is as you develop through your academic journey that you begin to, put a finger, on exactly what you want to pursue at the university. By the time you have started secondary school already, you might have decided that you want to do science. And so you might have decided you want to go and do general arts in senior high school. But while in senior high school, you develop interest in, let's say, in an engineering area. You want to go and do computer science, BSc computer science. But you're already in senior high school doing general arts. So you are limited, right?
Right.
Now, what this curriculum does is that it provides you with the flexibility that as and when that decision is taken, you still have an option of subject permutations that will enable you to vary or to horizontally move from one discipline to the other.
Okay.
Just because you satisfy certain permutations. And I'll give you an example to make it easier for you. You are in school doing general arts, okay, and then while in school you develop strong interest in doing computer science. Okay, you are able to select computer science as a subject, even though you are a general arts student. You are an art student, okay. So you are doing your compulsory subjects. There are 4 core subjects for this particular general arts student.
I thought there were 6 core subjects. In fact, we have this. Let's go through it. Let me go through it for a second, and then you come in, and then Benjamin will also come in a bit. So, for example, with the focus on science students, it means that they have mathematics, social studies, English, physical education and health, and robotics and coding as core subjects. These are 5 subjects as core, and then you have the learning area electives. So you have biology, chemistry, and physics. And then, that's all compulsory, so you do all. And then you have the related learning area electives, where you choose either 1 or 2. So focus on science students, we have additional mathematics, ICT, computer science, geography, agriculture, and PEA, that's physical education, also as an elective. And then you go to the other electives where you can pick either 1 or 2. You have economics, government, history, CRS, literature, and music. So what you're saying is that if you're a student who's interested in science, and you also have some interest in maybe home economics and the rest, you have the opportunity to choose your related learning area electives from the other area that is not your core subjects as a science student. Is that correct?
That is partially correct.
Okay. What is the gap left there?
This general arts student I was using as an example. Yes, you will do physical education and health, PH, okay? But you don't count it as core, okay? It is foundational. It is not examinable. And so you don't call it core. You do it only in 1 year. Okay, so you don't call it core. Again, as this particular general, and I want to use a general arts student example so that we don't confuse ourselves. Let's take the general. This general arts student also will have the opportunity of doing robotics and coding. You don't see it as your core that you are doing from Form 1 to Form 3 and being examined on. You do it only it's compulsory for only year 2. You understand?
And that's also not examinable.
Yes, but it's compulsory for year 2.
Okay.
So your core subjects are still 4: maths, social studies, English language, and general science. But you do 2 subjects along the way, which are compulsory.
Okay.
One is PH, physical education and health, and then the other is
robotics and coding, right?
As one in year 1 and one in year 2. Now, the point I was making is that while in the general arts class or category, you can choose to select a subject combination that reflects general arts and then engineering. You can do, in addition to your core, you can do up to 5 electives.
Which is either economics, geography, history, CRS, literature, or music.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So you can decide to do economics, additional mathematics, and then computing. You can decide to do economics, additional mathematics, and computing. You can decide to do history, additional mathematics, and computing. So you can do any subject combination from the 3 groups there, okay? But once you are doing computing and additional mathematics, those 2 alone can take you to BSc, computer engineering, or any of the engineering at the tertiary level You understand? So you are not a STEM student at the secondary level, but you can go to the tertiary level and do a STEM program in computing or in engineering by virtue of these two subject combinations.
All right.
It is similar to what we have under the A-level system. It is virtually, if not the same, it is similar to what we had under the A-level system. So that one is not restricted to select only the arts subject because you are an art student.
Okay.
Or you are not restricted to select only business subjects because you're a business student. I'll give you another example of a business student to make it a bit clear for the business guys too. You're a business student. You have your core, your 4 core, and then you have electives. You want to go and do the same, let's say agricultural science, okay, in the university. You can have separate combinations. You can do biology and agricultural science, even though you are a business student. You can also choose to do computing and add maths, even though you're a business student. Add it to your business program, your business subjects, and then go to the university and then do computing.
All right, Mr. Asare, I think that the part, in terms of the selection of the courses, that part is clear. In your initial remarks, you said there's been a lot of review. How extensive were the consultations and the reviews that came in before the rollout of this curriculum? And then you can hold for Ben.
I am not an expert in this area, okay? And so I am trying to explain my understanding of the curriculum based on the knowledge I acquired having participated in these consultations. So that should tell you the level of consultation. I'm not an expert in this area, but everything I'm saying today is as a result of the knowledge I acquired having participated in the consultation. Of course, I represent on the Teacher Education Curriculum Technical Working Group, and because of that, I'm privy to the framework for developing the curriculum for teachers who would teach in this curriculum. And then also, we've had engagement with NACA on the curriculum. I mean, in the past year, about 2 years, we've been having engagements, CSOs, teacher unions. They've been going around the country engaging stakeholders in the process of developing the curriculum.
For 2 years.
What I see to be where there's a little gap is the communication on the final, because the product kept changing because of the iterative nature, because of the way the consultations were going on, shaping the design, etc. So I see that at this point, no, perhaps prior to this point, we could have had more extensive, if I say we, I'm talking about stakeholders in the sector, would have had more engagement with especially parents and the general public on the quite confusing stuff, especially if not including the subject combinations. Because I spoke to a parent who wanted his son to go to Presec when he was selecting the schools. And I asked him, why do you want your son to go to Presec? And this is a senior colleague. And he said, oh, because he wants to go to Legon and do computer science. And I said, your son doesn't need to go and do science at Presec, to go and do computer science at tertiary. He said, oh, how? By that time, he had already selected Presec science. But the deadline wasn't due yet. So I asked them to go to the school is in Tamale, to go to the school, and then ask the school to change the course from science to general arts. Because if you really want to go and do computer science, you don't need to go and box yourself in that science space at Presec, because that space is already competitive. You can have subject combinations as a general arts student, okay, that will enable you to do your engineering program.
Right, so flexibility to pursue different interests while you figure out or fine-tune exactly what you're aiming for in the tertiary, at the tertiary level. Benjamin.
Kofi, I mean, all of this is good. I've always been a fan of doing different things. I started with general arts, though I was nearly pushed into science back in the day. General arts, I built my knowledge in science. I read a lot in the sciences, even medical sciences. And I've veered into different things, language, law, and all that. So I'm one for versatility and doing multiple things to build yourself as a human being. But I also feel that while it is encouraging that we are devolving into these areas, robotics and everything, I feel how we are articulating or skewing them may be problematic. If you look at the Norwegian system, which is one of the best in the world, at senior high level or general upper secondary level, you are seeing students learning things like Norwegian itself as a language, mathematics, natural science, English, social science, geography, history, religion and ethics, and physical education. Maybe it is how we are piecing them together, because I am asking, for example, Kofi, why am I not seeing French in there? I love the fact that there's Arabic, one of the major languages now in terms of population, different numbers speaking them, and in terms of relevance at the UN. Spanish as well, especially if you want to work in the US or some other place. But I'm asking, would you put a Spanish, a language I speak anyway, and I love, but would you put it over French? When you're surrounded by the sort of entities you are, when in ECOWAS, French-speaking nations are, you know, juggernauts and they are contributing. And by the way, many Ghanaians miss out on certain jobs because they have no knowledge of French. There was a time when recently I was handling a program and we needed a female MC in Ghana who could speak French. We couldn't find one because the level required was high. It wasn't any, you know, we couldn't find one. So that is one, my issue with French. I don't know whether it's an issue for you. Agriculture or agricultural science, I feel back then, at least JSS, it was there for all of us. Is that something we could do as a means of feeding the agri sector, which is one of our economic backbones? And I also feel like in the Norwegian system where they have religion and ethics, especially with everything going on in our world today, Christian religious studies or Islamic religious studies, whatever it is, but I think it can be fused together, religious studies, should be something that probably permeates, cuts across all levels, whether it's science, business, or whatever. Your reactions to these for now?
I think your concerns are legit and fully well appreciated within the global scheme of things. Except that the approaches may differ. If you study this curriculum carefully, it virtually reduces the number of subjects being offered in our secondary education system from 63 to about 37 or so, okay? And then it reduces some by combining some of them, okay? Because we have so many subjects being taught. Now, there is a school of thought that believes that, yes, certain international languages should be compulsory, okay? But there's another school of thought that also believes that if we should make any language compulsory for people, it should be our local indigenous language and not international languages, even though we know that is the international language that makes you more globally competitive. So that is a discussion that never ends. But the reality is that there are so many subjects that are very, very foundational, fundamental, you know, in the upbringing, in the development, in the professional career of our students, that if we have to make all of them compulsory, we're going to have a very, very bloated curriculum that will not be practicable to deploy. So if you look carefully at this, all the subject combinations I mentioned, for the general science student I was talking about, he has the option of doing French. If you look at the section C of the general arts combination, we have Arabic, we have French, we have Spanish. So there are 3 international languages, and then we have Ghanaian language under Group C. So we have 4 languages from which that student can select up to 2, okay? And so this student I'm talking about can decide that because I have an interest in doing French to enable me to become much more globally competitive in my computer science I want to pursue. I will do computer science, I will do my advanced, but I'll do French in addition to my electives. So that can be your 4th core, or it can even be your 3rd core.
Is there French in there though? Is there French?
Yeah. Yes, that's French.
Okay, then I think what we looked at may not have had, because what we've put out does not include French. And that was one of my concerns. I would have found that a bit weird. But if there's French and there is Arabic and Spanish, then it makes complete sense to me. In fact, just a reminder, my Ivorian friends and some of those in the Francophone countries around us, because they speak French, usually what they have in there, they would have, I think, English being compulsory, and that's why a lot of them are so good. A lot of them actually come to places like Ghana to study, and then they would have German and then Spanish as well. If you follow their system, most of them speak French, have a good level of English, and usually it's either Spanish or German.
Yeah, I agree with you. So there's French, there's Spanish, there's Arabic, and then there's Ghanaian language. And so that flexibility is there, but then it's actually not the compulsory program that when we're doing O-level, we're doing French for first 3 years compulsory. But it's an elective which one can opt to do. And the flexibility here also is that you're not supposed to do just 3 or 4 electives. You're supposed to do your 4 core and a maximum of 5 electives, minimum of 3 electives. So if you want to add French as an additional one after your 3 compulsory electives, that's fine. If you want it to be part of your electives, you can still up to. The second is the issue of agriculture. You mentioned, yes, of course. And people will always say, and I am one of those that fully subscribe to the fact that agriculture is our backbone. Okay, the average African spends about 44 to 45% of disposable income, on food. And the continent that doesn't feed itself can obviously not survive, the next generation. And so if we know that we have created demand for our feeding, if we are able to produce enough, then we already have a business in Africa.
Right.
But the challenge is that we are net importers of food today, than in the past. And so I believe that agric is one skill that every student that enters our pre-tertiary education system must not live without acquiring that particular skill. Not that because
and I may just add this, Kofi Asare. You see, back in our day, we were on school farms. My school had a school farm. You'd be growing yam and all kinds of things. Even if you were technically at the secondary level pursuing your general arts, you still had some sort of feel of that. Nowadays, that is practically non-existent in most schools. So you are robbed of the practical aspect, and you're also robbed of the theoretical aspect. Just adding to what you're saying.
Yes, it is true. And it is not because we want someone to go and become a farmer. Okay, I do farming as part of my work. I do farming. But I got an interest from the agric I did in secondary school. Okay, the compulsory agric I did in secondary school. But the point is that if you become a decision maker, wherever you find yourself, even in the medical field, any field, you would appreciate at that level of decision making that agric is important and it requires certain attention just because you partook in agric at a point in your life. And at least also in your house, your backyard garden, or you investing as a secondary or tertiary profession in agric should not be too difficult for you to understand. So we were of the opinion that agric should have been made a foundational course. In fact, our major input into the curriculum was to make agric we call it basic practical agriculture, a foundational course, so that at least in Form 1 everybody would do agric, non-examinable, just like the physical education and
robotics.
But it didn't fly. I'm sure many others had various proposals to have other subjects being mainstream or same. So, but in subsequent reviews, we'll continue to advocate that agric be made foundational because we need that basic practical agricultural skills. But the good thing about agric in this particular subject combination is that we now have agricultural science and agric. There are 2 different subjects.
Yeah.
One is a science subject, agricultural science. And the one is a much more practical agric subject. Okay. So if you have an interest in going to do, let's say, you're a business student or a general student, but you want to go and do BSc agric in the university. If you did agricultural science and biology combinations, for instance, even though you are a general arts student, you can go to the university and do BSc agric. Okay, because the BSc agric itself, the agricultural science is a science subject, biology is also a science subject. So you don't need to go and do physics, chemistry, biology, add maths to go and do agric in the university. As it stands now, for you to go and do BSc agric in the university, you must be a pure science student. And that is why you have very, very few numbers making it, because those who end up there are people who perhaps wanted to do medicine, couldn't get through. And then they have to follow on agric. So the permutations here will enable the general students to have the opportunity of doing agric at the tertiary level, which is also great.
Well, I want to find out from you, Mr. Asare, while this educational potential of this new curriculum can be praised or argued in both ways, it appears there are still some concerns from teachers. There's a quote here from the Upper East Regional Chairperson of the Ghana National Association of Teachers, Madam Ivy Naso. And she said, it's only when there is adequate or equal infrastructure at various schools that we can achieve an equal curriculum. And this is a legitimate concern because we are talking about teacher training, learning materials, and technological supports, which are essential. So these factors lead me to ask, what infrastructural or structural gaps have you identified, and what provisions have been made in order for us to implement this new curriculum successfully?
What I know is that the curriculum has been piloted in over 30 senior high schools for about over a year. Okay, and the piloting process has been engaging, iterative, and feedback from the piloting, has served the purpose of strengthening and perfecting the design of the program. And I want to acknowledge the role that TTEL, NACA, and others have played in this process. And we at EduWorld have been interested in the piloting because we raise all these issues in the rollout of the basic school curriculum. So we have been following carefully all these processes to be sure that we just don't tick boxes, but then we practically don't miss any critical step required in deploying new curricula. I am also aware that learning content has been developed, okay, and deposited on a portal. It's a portal called Microsite. It's a zero-rated website of the Ministry of Education, where all learning content, including subject-specific teacher manuals, handbooks, learning materials, have been deposited. Okay, we know that our schools, our students are being given tablets to enable them access digital learning content and participate in the digital learning revolution. And so the content they need and the content teachers need have been provided. Teachers have been trained over and over and over. They have this professional.
How many teachers have been trained?
The teachers who are going to teach in this new curriculum have been trained already.
Out of the 260 or so districts that we have, how many teachers in these schools have been trained?
No, it's not district. I mean, the senior high school teachers have already been trained. And they established what they call professional learning communities, okay, where teachers practice, discuss, and then improve upon their skills, in teaching this particular subject. So this has been ongoing for about a year now. You understand? It is not a workshop.
Right.
It's not a workshop and then everybody goes home. No.
Yeah.
They actually have these PLCs, okay, and then more or less like a knowledge sharing hub for teachers to have conversations around the understanding of the curriculum, of the subject content, of the pedagogic issues, and all the other things that teachers, have. And it's been going on a facilitation of TTEL for over a year now.
And in this 1 year, can you tell how many teachers have benefited from this training and piloting? How many teachers are we talking about?
No, what I'm saying is that teachers who are going to be taught, who are going to teach using this curriculum, have all been trained.
They have been trained. That's all you're saying?
Yes.
And I'm asking how many? Are you saying all teachers have been trained? Okay, well.
Yes, all senior school teachers have been. If you are not trained, how you can't teach it? Yes, that's the point I'm making. That in all the 705, I think there were about 705 or 700 something senior high schools in 2023. All the senior high schools, they trained them. Yes. Okay. This is different from basic schools. You see, you have 14,000 to 15,000 primary schools. So deploying curriculum in basic schools is very, very different. You have 14,000 kindergartens, 15,000 primary schools, 10,000 junior high schools. Is different. But for the senior high schools, they are less than 1,000. You understand? So training of the teachers is school-based, and it's much different from what we experience, you know, in the basic school.
All
so
right.
this training commenced long ago. They've been trained. Teachers have been trained in the use of the curriculum. And I'm saying that after the training, they establish professional learning communities where they discuss the training and the training content, the outcomes, the skills, so that they are able to build their own capacity through conversations around the subjects and then also the pedagogy and then other skills they require to perfect, you know, in using the curriculum to teach. This has been done.
Talking about teachers, Ben will bring in one shortly into the conversation.
Well, we have Rose Blankson joining the conversation. She's a former teacher, she's a parent, and she's also assistant registrar at the University of Cape Coast. Madam Blankson, a very good morning to you. Could you speak up a little for me, please?
Good morning.
It's a pleasure, a real pleasure having you. How much do you know
about... It's my pleasure.
How much do you know about this this new curriculum, and what do you make of it from what you've seen?
Well, good morning to your cherished listeners. I remember a few months ago, I was on the same channel.
Yes.
And when I expressed my explicit opinion about how this current government rolls out policies, otherwise beautiful, effective policies, without engaging all stakeholders and making all stakeholders own policies that are rolled out, I was indirectly insulted as not being knowledgeable, because probably the person thought I was not reading around. The person thought that I should go about reading and that there is no need to engage even parents who are the direct beneficiaries of these policies that are being rolled out, because it's parents whose children go into these schools and they go and study or benefit from these new curricula that are being churned out. As a parent, a grandparent who is a proud beneficiary of the free SHS, having two grandsons in SHS now, I dare tell you that the current grandson going to school, I would say it's only about last week that I really paid attention to what is going on around this new curricula. Because there hasn't been much engagement. It's been the teacher. Yes, the teacher is being trained. The teacher has to be trained.
The teacher has to
Parents would have to guide their children when they come home. Homework, project work, other things would come out. They would come home with these things. And parents would have to be involved. The communities would have to be involved. How much engagement has gone on?
In other words,
I really don't even know much.
In other words,
I don't even know anything about this new curriculum and what it involves.
Okay,
Yesterday I heard there is this new sign language or whatever being introduced. And I would then mention two teachers who were discussing on Facebook. And one said, so who is going to teach? I mean, is every teacher equipped to teach? And then another said, well, is it PLC or that Thursday afternoon training they do? That has equipped them. They have the manuals. They have the training manuals. And it was like, a joke. But governments will come and defend that once you are pointing out the limitations that have not been looked at, you are against a policy. No. We need to engage.
Madam Blankson, so the point, I guess, is this, and correct me if I'm wrong. Engagement must be done pre-policy implementation, not post-policy implementation.
Exactly,
because a lot of the time, you may get this done, but apart from the teachers who may have to put out knowledge and all of that, How about parents? How about other actors? Kofi Asare.
Exactly the point I'm making.
Right.
That
right.
Policies are churned out without engaging the stakeholders, the key stakeholders. And that is how come every time it appears that every time government rolls out certain policies, some of these policies are very beautiful policies. Some of these ideas are perfect. But the way they are churned out, we have to own these policies. We have to own this curriculum. CSHS should be owned by Ghanaians.
Right.
But how was it rolled out? People who critiqued the rolling out, it became an issue. They became targets. I was insulted, as I said, as though I didn't know what I was talking about. I mean, before any good policy comes out, it will flow and run smoothly if key stakeholders are engaged before the policy is rolled out.
So in this current
when
situation,
I was very young, they will engage communities and they say, a crow, they wobogwa. Then they present the policy, we jaw, we make suggestions. I saw my parents, my aunties, making suggestions here and there. Sometimes they will say, right, in those days, they will give it to students. Write an essay on so and so, pros and cons of this. Before policies are turned out. Now you will be there and then boom, it is few people know about it and boom, and you go and talk about it and it's as if you don't want it to happen. So it's the lack of proper engagement.
Right.
That has been our bane.
How with this current proposition, for example, how do we make it better? Let's assume we go ahead and roll it out. How do we make it better in terms of efficacy, effectiveness? If we go ahead, there are positives to it. How do we go ahead and make it better?
Yes, so we can engage through our social media. We can engage through radio. I mean, your station goes everywhere in the world. Adverts, 5-minute sensitization, advertisements are placed there, documentaries are put out there. TikTok is there. Facebook is there. I mean, the platform, the mediums that we are using for political campaigns and all of that, we can engage same platforms. Now, TikTok is the new normal. Everyone is advertising, doing stuff, quality information being churned out on TikTok. We can do that.
All right.
Use our local languages. Get people who can, speak the local languages fluently, who can educate in these languages.
Right.
Get voiceovers done. Get documentaries done. Record voices. Play them at community centers. We have community information centers. They announce, they give information every morning and every evening after the news. Let's have it spread all over. And then once we are able to do that, we are good to go.
All right.
We can return, go back and fetch and do the right thing.
Madam Langston, just hold for me. Sweetie may have a question for you, but I want to shoot this to Kofi Asare very quickly and then it'll be done for me. A message came through and the person says, the person talks about entrepreneurship. I suggest that entrepreneurship should be included. That is Steve Amenya. I don't know what you make of that. And from my end, finally, how does a curriculum like this, how does it shape the thinking of our students? We're in a global village, vis-a-vis the 4th or 5th industrial revolution. How will this impact them, do you think? Very quickly on those 2 points, Kofi Asare.
One of the major anchors of the curriculum is the integration of national values in the content. And so we have it mainstream. We don't have a subject on entrepreneurship, and then we have a subject on core nationalism, and all that. We may not have subjects standalone, but The integration of national values inform to a higher extent the design of the curriculum, and so they are all mainstream within the curriculum. I want to indicate that every topic or every particular topic is important, every topic, but not every topic can be a subject area. But then having it mainstream within the curriculum also provides an opportunity for every student, whether you are opting for that program as standalone or not, to have an experience. And that is what the particular curriculum attempts to do. I want to associate myself with the point that Madam raised. Yes, there have been some deficits in public engagement, especially on the subject permutations. And I appreciate that a lot of the stakeholder consultations did not include the parents, you understand? Yes, stakeholders, formal stakeholders. And ordinarily, once the product was cooked, after the extensive stakeholder consultations, I would have expected that a lot more public engagement would have been done, targeting parents, so that they would have been able to support their students in selecting their courses, while they selected the schools under the school computer school placement. Having said that, it is important that we prioritize the public engagement, and we are happy to support NACA to communicate more on the pathways, on the various pathways and subject mixes, so that parents understand this. Parents must understand it so that they can guide their students in selecting that. For now, the students are in school. The teachers will help them to understand it and then make the necessary selections. But the parents' input is always important. So that's an area that we are happy as an organization to support NACA in, strengthen parental on the subject mix and then the various pathways.
Well, Sweetie?
Yeah, I mean, it all makes sense. I just want to find out from Madam Rose, if aside the, lack of consultation, if you're okay with the curriculum, you've had a chance to go through it, aside the lack of consultation that you talk about. Are you okay with it?
That the two key things I took away from skimming through, I haven't read the curriculum, but I've skimmed through the curriculum.
Right.
And two key things caught my attention, which I'm happy about. Entrepreneurship as part of the curriculum, because honestly...
There's entrepreneurship there.
Come again?
No, go ahead.
Yes, honestly, entrepreneurship for me is a game changer. It will help, clamp down on this unemployed graduate issue. I am a full-time administrator, but I'm an entrepreneur. I don't buy fruit juices from the market. I make them myself.
Right.
I don't buy yogurt from the market. I make them myself. I make my own jewelry, and I train people to do so many things so they can earn something for themselves. And for me, so that is positive. Okay. But what will go into it after teaching them the entrepreneurship, the theoretical aspect, how ready are we to engage them practically? The junior secondary school system came with technical education, vocational education. We were to be trained to do leather work and all of that. These things were rolled out theoretically, but when it came to practical, we never followed it. We just let it hang. So a child knows how to cut leather and how to mold things theoretically. He will be able to recite how it is done. But when you give the child scissors and leather to measure and cut, the child will not be able to do it. Are we going to equip the children, practically to come out and excel?
Right.
I also noticed
Madam
that
Langston,
if you are doing elective science, that is, if you are science students, you will not read core science. For me, that is also positive because I felt it wasn't fair at the time where, you are reading elective science, physics, chemistry, biology, EMA, and then you are forced to do core science as well.
All right.
So these are two things I've taken away with me, and I feel it's positive.
Thank you so much for adding your voice to the
if I read it, then you'll be able to engage better.
Right. Rose Blankson is a parent. Thank you for joining us on the AM show. We also spoke to Mr. Kofi Asare, Executive Director for the Africa Education Watch, on this new curriculum that's been rolled out for second cycle schools.
Rose also is assistant registrar at UCC. The final point you were making, I think someone asked that shouldn't we be thinking of adding entrepreneurship? I've not seen it in there. She talks about the fact that she is happy it is in there. I don't know whether it's based on what I said, but entrepreneurship would be a good thing to add. And this was a proposition from a viewer. Well, thank you for doing the watching. Thank you for staying with us on this belt of the conversation. But there is still a lot more to come your way. You don't want to go anywhere. Stay. We'll be right back. Welcome back on the AM show, and it's too close to call. It's down to the wire in the American presidential elections. It's a straight fight between former President Donald John Trump and, of course, Kamala Harris, the vice president. Will history be made? Will Donald Trump return to the hot seat, if you like, POTUS, or would it be Kamala Harris? We're going to be investigating that, interrogating that issue this morning with our guests, and you have about 76 million of those Americans who are already in early voting have got to cast their vote. Joining me this morning, Nanaya Mreku. He's an analyst of international relations and African politics. Nanaya, a very good morning to you.
Thank you for having me. Good morning to you too.
Thank you for joining the conversation. First off, why does this American election, why is it so important? Why should it even bother us here in Ghana?
Well, good morning to your discerning viewers once again. I think that it's just not only Ghanaians, but Africa as a whole, because we know that even though obviously we are not Americans, America's foreign policy reverberates across all the corners of the world. They say America coughs and the world catches cold. And so there are a number of developments within U.S. politics that have significant impact on Ghanaians or Africans or whoever you are, wherever you find yourself. Take, for instance, whoever comes to power, right, has certain economic policy that will have impact on Ghana's economy. Donald Trump is threatening to imposing 20% tariffs on all imports that will be coming to United States. We know how U.S.'s role in Russia and Ukraine affected Ghana's economy, if you want to put it that way. That some are claiming that is the result for the reason why we found the economic quagmire or why our economy stank. So there are a number of developments happening in U.S. that will have impacts or consequences on Ghana's economy, if you may. Again, if whoever comes to power, if it is Donald Trump, we know how Africa has featured as an afterthought. And it doesn't matter whether it's Kamala Harris or it is Donald Trump. In the particular case of Donald Trump, Africa has featured as an afterthought. How are African leaders going to re-strategize themselves so they are also able to tap into growing U.S. politics? So the stakes are high not only for Americans, but for global politics as well.
All right. We had to situate the conversation from that angle because sometimes you have people ask, but why are you even focusing on the American elections? Of course,
again,
that's part of why.
Right.
What you stated in there. It wasn't for me. It's for the audience.
Right.
Some of.
In fact, there are some that will even draw some semblance of a sort as to what happens there as far as the political outcome is concerned, and they draw some synergies to the elections that are taking place in Ghana, but that is another discussion. It's always been like that permutation. When Democrats wins, what it means for Ghanaian politics. When Republicans wins, what it means for Ghana's politics. Yeah.
Well, those synergies have not always played out. You remember in the last election, analogies were drawn, but if you look at what happened in Ghana versus what happened in the U.S., the Democrats seized power from the Republicans, with Joe Biden now becoming president and Mike Pence and Donald Trump out, with Veep, Kamala Harris, and now at least then you had the MPP retained.
Right.
So there have been differences as well. I don't know whether those who make those permutations will still hold on to them. But looking at the peculiar system that America runs, You don't win because you get the popular vote. You win because you win the electoral college. And they have an interesting electoral college system. That is why Al Gore did not become president for whatever reason, based on Florida's voting. And it has happened quite a number of times. Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump while winning the popular vote. In this election, there are some who say Kamala likely would get the popular vote. The question is whether she would get the electoral college votes. What is this electoral college system? How can you break it down for our viewers?
Okay, so America practices what we call indirect democracy. You would expect that in every liberal democracy, the people have that direct capacity to elect their president, what you call the simple majority, which is what we have in Ghana's liberal democracy. But in US, they practice what you call the electoral collegial system. So over 250 million Americans are going to vote. But in voting, they are only sending indicators to another group of people as to who should become the president. So the popular vote do not elect the president. What they have is what they call the electoral collegial system. There are 538 electors, as we call them, and these are congressional electors. And each of these electors are then supposed to vote for whoever the popular vote indicates should be the president. So the electoral collegial system is as we have it, and they usually vote after the popular vote has taken place. So, like I said, there is 538 of them. Now, this is the breakdown. Congress has 435 out of this 538, and then the Senate has 100 of them, and then the Washington, D.C. has 3 electors. So if you put them together, you have 538. However, even though this is the collegial system, the U.S. election as it stands now will boil down to 7 key swing states. It is the electors from these key swing states that are going to define the outcome of the elections. And so the other 47 states the other 43 states would matter, but they are called safe states. These are safe states. The 43 states is either...
And you call them safe because by and large in the United States, people declare who they are. So I am Democrat, I am Republican, and I'm voting Democrat. And if they are not, usually they also talk about it. So you have blue states and red states. So it is clear. That number is clear.
Exactly.
But then it comes to those crucial, key states. Like you could say in Ghana, Greater Accra, and maybe the Ashanti region, and maybe the Volta region, and sometimes the Central region. That's what you're saying.
Right. Exactly.
So what are these key states? I mean, let's look at them.
So let's look at the Sun Belt states. Okay. These are Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, and then Georgia. And then the blue wall states traditionally have been Pennsylvania, the most popular state amongst them in the key swing states. And then you have Michigan and Wisconsin. So together there is 7 of them. These are the key swing states. Now, they are called swing states because they have politically realigned themselves in the previous elections. So today, in this particular year, they vote for Republicans. The next 4 years, they vote for Democrats. So that is how it has always been. Trump took most of these states in 2016. Biden takes them in 2020. So there is no clear definition as to who they will vote for unless the election, has taken place. And this is the political reconfiguration that makes them swing states.
Let me bring in Dr. John Osai Kwapong. He is a CDD fellow and also one who lives in the United States. So he has an apt appreciation of the system there. He joins the conversation. Doc, good morning. You would have to unmute, Doc, if you've
Yes, can you hear me now? Good morning.
I can hear you now. It's good to have you join the conversation. So we've kickstarted the conversation talking about the American elections, over 76 million casting their votes early, about 250 million out of the close to 400 million or plus of the American population going to the polls. How crucial is this election, even as we look for the magic number 270?
Very, very, very crucial because the two candidates are presenting two very different, should I say, visions for the U.S. The economy remains the number one issue of concern to voters. And if you look at how the Harris campaign is framing the response to the economic issues versus the Trump campaign, it's a question of what sort of policies would restore the economy back to, a level at which Americans were not feeling the kind of pinch points that they say they're feeling. Inflation has been up for some time. Yes, it has come down, but prices of basic goods and services, all of those things are impacting how people are feeling and how they are looking at the candidates in terms of who can really address their economic challenges. But there is also the whole democracy argument, which is the Democrats have framed this also as who will safeguard America's democracy, preserve it, and protect certain basic rights, particularly the reproductive rights of women. And they've described Donald Trump as a man who poses a threat to America's democracy. The Republicans on the other side have made, besides the economy, have also made a big issue out of immigration and how to deal with the crisis at the border, all of those things. So whoever wins has very different, visions of how we need to address the economy, issues of immigration, and how we protect or do not protect America's democracy.
I see. And of course, I'm sure there are people around you who have voted. I do not know your status as far as the United States is concerned, but if you were to vote, I don't know whether you have, I don't know your nationality status, but if you were to vote, I mean, I don't know, weighing these issues, what would you be looking at?
So, full disclosure, I voted early and I voted for Kamala Harris. And I voted for her primarily because of, for me, the political temperament, character issue, and the democracy argument. Are
you one of those who say that Trump is a threat to democracy?
In my opinion, right? And the way for me, that threat for me is a reflection of some of his rhetoric around our processes, our institutions, and the penchant to sometimes delegitimize some of these critical institutions that help make democracy work. I mean, for the first time, for the 28 years that I've been in the US, I never sort of had, you never hear these conversations about the legitimacy of elections, right? But for the first time in 2020, I mean, you got to a point where there are all these serious doubts about the legitimacy of elections, and you have a major candidate going all out to really dispute elections without, in my opinion, any evidence. I mean, went to number of courts, thrown out, but still insists that that election was stolen from him. And for me, it has undermined our faith. At least it has chipped away at traditionally the faith and confidence that people used to have in our electoral system. So for me, my vote for Kamala Harris was a reflection of some of those concerns about temperament, character, the kind of persona that one wants to see in the US presidency, and some of these concerns that I have about the delegitimizing of the institutions that are key to making our democracy work.
All right. Hold for me, Doc. Let me bring in Nanaya as well, and I'll come to hard issues, tough issues, immigration, the economy, Israel, Palestine, Iran, and the entire dynamics of same. I'll come to those shortly and how they feed into the election. But he's made mention of why he's voting for Kamala Harris. You would realize that in the last election, it took Mike Pence to refuse to go along with what Donald Trump was saying when the Capitol uprising happened, and put pen to paper without which there could have been some sort of coup d'etat against the state. It took Mike Pence to do that. Donald Trump has already started laying the foundation for disputing the election results, unheard of. But he's already laying the foundation for that. Stories captured by CNN point to that. How weird is it that this is happening? And of course, it is again Donald Trump.
Well, I think it's very interesting to understand how the so-called beacon of democracy is experiencing some of these setbacks, because indeed it set their democratic credentials, back to, so it set it back essentially.
Do you then agree that Donald Trump, like Doc does, that he's a threat to democracy?
Well, I mean, from what we have seen, America's diplomatic and global image as the bastion or the beacon of democracy is in question as it stands now because of what we saw on January 6th. And some of the rhetoric that Trump has been passing as far as the election is concerned. Because like you said, in Pennsylvania, I mean, we saw how he's already blaming the Labour Party uniquely, for instance, for the possible interferences in the election's outcome. So, to a very large extent, I think that the image of America that we know, is under threat. And to a very large extent, this is one of the things that the Democrats are dwelling on, that Donald Trump is a threat to America's glory that it burst in as far as democracy is concerned. So it is true that that is the case. But we also should understand that Donald Trump represents a very solid constituent within the American populace, and it tells you the values that these Americans hold.
White, if you like, Caucasian, evangelicals, and all of that.
Exactly.
And those who feel, and that is one of the things that made his campaign prominent, make America great
again.
And take out all these foreigners. Well, some of them don't know their history because the country was built on the backs of foreigners.
Of course. So it becomes very difficult to, reconcile these two things. And I think that by and large, the Republican Party understood that Trump, to me, I have to be frank with you, I thought this election was Trump's to give. Had he not, wrote on this politics, he does more of politics of insult than politics of insight.
True.
And the Republican...
The last campaign, both of them, I think it was just how many hours ago, he spent the last bit of it insulting.
Exactly.
And Kamala was talking about involving everybody.
Exactly.
I mean,
Kamala says he has a to-do list. Trump says he has an enemy to deal with list. And the Republicans realize that, look, it is very dangerous for you to go against Harris and do politics of personality and attacks. So shy away from that and talks to the insight and the policies. And by and large, I think this has hurt Trump to a very large extent. It is recently that he's realized that it is good for him to stack to the policy issue. Because you see, you cannot dissociate Kamala Harris from the bad policies of Biden. So if you wanted to go hard on, tackle the policies and not the personality.
And it affected him, I'm going back to Doc, but it affected him even in that first debate. I don't know whether that was the ABC one, because his handlers kept saying, focus on the issues. You will get her there. You will strangle her there. He started a little bit on that. Things were going well, and Harris played her ace in the pack. She goaded him. And once he took something personally, he went after her personally and stayed away from the issue.
It's just like forcing a fish to fly in the air. To do politics of policies is taking Trump out of his comfort zone. And that is where you have him, at his best.
Dr. Osai Kwapong, let me come to you. If you read that CNN article I was just talking about, it starts like this. Donald Trump is reusing his 2020 playbook to baselessly claim the 2024 election is being stolen from him and is being joined by allies with big megaphones, amplifying his falsehoods ahead of election day. How do you feel about this, and how do you feel about the sort of following that Donald Trump has? I mean, he put up Truth Social when he was taken off Twitter, which is now X and all of that. But are you surprised at the sort of following Donald Trump has in the United States?
I'm not. I'm not surprised because I think he found a way to speak to whatever quote unquote grievances they may have had or they may have been feeling, right? So he noticed that in his base, or for the Republican Party base, immigration was becoming a really hot button issue for them. And so he didn't mind the kind of rhetoric that appeals to the base of the party. Generally, Republicans historically have tended to be a little skeptical of federal government power and some of these institutions, right? So again, he didn't mind sort of playing to that rhetoric of, well, maybe we can even disband the Department of Education, which has been one of the favorite things that every so often you hear Republicans say over the years, all of that. But whatever anxieties, whatever pinch points that his voters were feeling, he found a way to speak directly to it, even if in ill-informed ways, in my opinion.
Right.
And all of a sudden, you see him in 2016 knocking out a lot of the traditional establishment Republican figures in the primary, and he emerges, and millions now, see him as, the potential next president. I mean, for all of the issues that have come up, for all of the legal challenges, he's doing extremely well. And I personally would not be surprised if he wins this election.
Indeed, it's been on a knife edge. And I watched something on Fox News recently that also suggested that maybe the numbers don't aptly reflect what is on the ground, because Kamala Harris could have a +4 percentage point difference. But that, polls in the U.S. can be tricky. And they've proven that, especially in the last 3 or so elections. One that was pretty clear was the first coming of Obama. That looked pretty clear. But every election after that has not been so certain. But let's look at this element as well. Star power. If you look at the different parties that are supporting the different ends, if you look at Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and I've seen posts, sometimes propagandist posts by Elon Musk, but all of them are there. And Elon Musk has been in firm support of Donald Trump, Hulk Hogan, the former wrestler, among others, supporting him. You look at the Democrats, and I was surprised to see Eminem, show up, and then you'd have Obama rapping, 8 Mile, the 8 Mile record, and all of that. Taylor Swift is in there, J-Lo, on the back of what that comedian said about those in, is it the Philippines, also Oprah Winfrey and the rest. Star power or power players, how much of a role is it playing in this election? How much influence, since you are there, how much influence does it have?
They do have a lot of influence, depending on their following, depending on how much they can financially contribute to the campaign. I mean, if you look at Elon Musk and how much he's contributing to the Trump campaign through his, I think it's the American PAC, it's called, right? Because it does take money to push out a lot of these messages, even the ones that do not that, like you said, are even propagandist in nature. It still does take quite a lot of financial resources to be able to do that. And depending on how individuals feel about these star power characters, it helps drive them to a particular candidate or not. So if you're a big fan of J-Lo, for example, and she steps out to endorse Kamala Harris and is canvassing for votes for her, you're likely to be drawn to that because, this is J-Lo, one of your biggest fans, who is saying, this is the candidate that I think should be the next, president of the United States. So, or even an Oprah Winfrey, the fan base she commands. But again, the money power that she also has to be able to donate to some of these campaigns. So those are the two things that come into play with these star powers. One, the influence of their money, but also the influence of their following to be able to sort of help turn out the votes for their respective candidates.
And again, I'll just chip back a little bit to that point where Trump is basically setting the foundation for refuting results if he doesn't win. And, he ended his campaign on a very dark note, mentioning that he should never have left the White House. I don't know whether you heard that. I felt that was particularly disturbing comment. He said he should not have left the White House, and for some, it is a repeated warning that if things don't go the way of the Republican Party, he will not accept it. But I have also heard Republicans, stalwarts, I've forgotten his name, he's been a former leader in, I don't know whether it's the Senate or Congress, an elderly man, I'll try to recall his name. And in a recent book, he railed against Trump, and some have said, whoa, I mean, but he's going against Trump about certain things and how dangerous it is, not just for the Republican Party, but for the entirety of the United States. If you look at this election, let's assume Trump does not win. What do you foresee happening?
If he does not win, I see a repeat of the 2020 playbook, which is calling the election into question, disputing it, claiming that it was rigged, claiming that he was cheated. And if you look at the percentage of Republicans who still believe that he won the 2020 election, I can see quite a sizable portion of the party either publicly supporting his claims or at least not even rebuking those claims. I don't know if they would push it as far as they did on January 6, 2021, with that protest and entering Congress to try and disrupt the certification of the results. But at least for me, he has said enough for me to believe that if he doesn't win this election, he would make the same claims he made in 2020, that he won, but he was cheated, and he would get enough people in the party to back any of such claims.
Nanayo, before we talk about other influences, of course, there is influence from the allies of the United States. You can talk about NATO members, the UK, and others, with a keen eye on what is happening there. And some say that Kamala Harris reflects what has happened in the UK with Keir Starmer, the new PM. I don't even know whether I should still call him new at this point in time. So before we talk about the external influences, of course, then Russia, Iran, China also come into the fray. But if you look at the other issues, the harder issues, take away the fact that people say, he talks off the top of his head without contemplating matters. He's too brash and all that. How about the realities of the American economy, about the hardship that people are going through and how they feel the times were better under Trump than they are under Biden?
I think that's a very important point. And look, no matter how you want to look at the global image of U.S. that most Democrats think is under threat with the Trump presidency, there are also biting realities internally that have pushed people to want to vote for President Trump, because most of these Republicans and U.S. citizens agree that at least during Trump's time there was an attempt to retain certain jobs and not outsource jobs outside U.S. to countries like China. This is somebody who wanted to make America great again, like he's been saying, and so concentrate America's resources into building a strong economy, bringing back jobs to ordinary people, building factories and industries. And Americans attest to that fact. In fact, that is why states like Michigan, that is one of the industrial hubs. That is where you have Ford. That is where you have other car building factories. That is why you have other states like Pennsylvania. That thing that they've lost most of the jobs that would have been created by Donald Trump. And so ordinarily, and as it is, the truth is that people are feeling a pinch of economic hardship that he thought under President Trump. Things were, better. Take migration. Migration is connected to economy as well. And people think the influx of immigrants from the U.S. border with Mexico is affecting the economy of U.S. And they think Trump probably did a better job, or Trump would do a better job at putting in place immigration policies than Joe Biden. So it is true that things are really biting, for ordinary Americans, and they think that Trump is probably going to, save the economic hardship that people find themselves, and that is dictating how, people are wanting to vote in the U.S. Let me just quickly add that when it comes to the issue of the democratic deficit or the democratic setbacks, even European Union is bracing for an impact for a possible rejection of the result by Donald Trump. So the European Union has established what they call a Donald Trump task force. Can you imagine if reliable allies like European Union are also bracing for, a possible debacle within U.S. elections? It tells you how the world is viewing America's democracy as a free one. So I think these are all important indicators that, we can expect going forward. But the economy is really an important, issue. Inflation, for instance. Inflation skyrocketed. And once again, you can blame COVID for that, because the analysis makes us understand that there was an interruption in the global chain of supply, and it increased inflation to 9%. But as we are talking now, I think the Democrats did a very good job. They have reduced it to 2%, but it is still biting, and people haven't forgotten those difficult moments, and they are ready to punish the Biden administration, for this, which unfortunately Kamala Harris is associated with.
All right. I'll stay on the economy briefly, and then I'll go to Dr. Osai Kwapong on it. Because if you look at the rhetoric, I do know, per what I have read over time, that while things were difficult for a while, unemployment rates have plummeted in the United States, and that their GDP has seen very great, strides. In fact, if you look at recent rhetoric from Kamala Harris, she says, by many indicators, our economy is the strongest in the world. That's what she says. Then Trump also says, the greatest economy in the history of our country, and the Biden-Harris administration has ruined it. You can expect a quip or riposte from him. But if you look at the data, of course, the unfairness in there has to do with COVID-19, per some reports, and what it also did to their economy, because some would also gauge that, well, it also had an impact. But even then, when you look at the charts, and you look at U.S. economic growth, GDP percentage changes in terms of previous quarters, you look at the first lockdown, there were issues. But right after that, the American economy rebounded, faced a bit of a crisis in 2022. But since then, it's held steady. And comparatively to under Trump, there's not much of a difference. So sometimes when this comes up, you ask yourself, are people really reflecting what the reality is? Right. Or is it just about a feeling? Right. What do you think?
I think we need to go down to the nitty-gritties of this whole idea. You see, there's this perception that Republicans are generally better at economic management, and it is sunk down with the ordinary American without having to really understand what is really happening.
Because it's not always the case. And I can take you back to Bill Clinton.
In fact, let me just add into what you're saying. Trump had a very solid economy because he inherited a similar solid economy from, a 47 solid, uninterrupted, good economy from Barack Obama. And Trump was able to actually build on that. To add to what you are saying, US GDP now is 27 trillion. In fact, comparing the unemployment rate is just 4.1 close to UK. It is better than that of India, that of most countries in Asia, better than Germany. I think the only country that does well than in US in terms of unemployment is Japan.
Yeah.
So the point you are making is that sometimes people make this argument without really understanding
the data does not back
that. The only thing Democrats are rather good at inflation management. I mean, there is a long line of data from The Economist that tells us how the Democrats have been how good they have been when it comes to inflation rate. So I think these are some of the nuances and the need for us to understand what really the candidates are saying versus the reality on the ground.
Yeah. And I guess with Trump, his rhetoric is hard. So if you don't go do the digging, you may take what he says hook, line, and sinker, and it could become...
Trump is held to a different standard when it comes to U.S. politics. There are things that he said that ordinary politicians will never get away with. Look at what he said to Liz Cheney. Yeah. Nobody will say this and go scot-free. Look at what is...
Dick Cheney's wife.
Exactly. Look at what somebody says in the New York rally. That Puerto Rico is a garbage, is an island of garbage.
It's actually Puerto Rico, not the Philippines.
Puerto Rico. And it has become...
It's a floating island of garbage. Unfortunately, I mean, it's not ill-intended. We're just reflecting what the comedian said, which Donald Trump and Vance have been held.
Right. So it just tells you how Trump has held the standard. He has a different standard that people hold him up to, and that is not the same that is given to Kamala. Kamala Harris is scrutinized for every word that he speaks. In fact, people are saying she's not a good political communicator. And how is Trump a better political communicator than Kamala Harris?
Yeah, I mean, they may not necessarily say it in respect of the two of them, but obviously Trump is more boisterous, more belligerent, if you like, and I think he's created some bubble for himself. Right. At least one good thing, Dr. John Osai-Kwapong, was that in these debates, at least the first one, there was fact-checking. So, and you'd realize that Trump got fact-checked a lot more, and he felt aggrieved by it, but it was also because some of what he was saying was not necessarily the truth. Do you have any response, since you yourself dabble in economics, do you have any response on that point as far as the economy is concerned, or can I move on? Dr. Osai-Kwapong.
Just to quickly add to what Mr. Mriku said, the economy, inflation has come down from a high of, I think, 9% to about 2.4%. Unemployment has held, steady, all of those things. But there's still a lot of angst about the economy. If you look at all of the public opinion polls, Americans still don't feel good about the economy, and they still see Donald Trump as the person they trust better to handle the economy than Harris. And it's interesting, but sometimes it's also some of the little things, right? So for me, for example, if let's say I was going to look at the economic pinch points that I'm feeling and say I'm going to blame the president for it, it would be on things like grocery prices, right? And when citizens feel even things at that basic level, right or wrong, they blame whoever is the president, right? I remember there's this pepper I used to buy from the grocery store. It was like $3.99 a pound. One day I get to the store and it's $5.99. The price of milk, the price of eggs, those little things. Yeah. And believe it or not, people make a connection between some of those everyday needs with whoever is president, right?
I guess this is where macroeconomics and microeconomics come in.
Precisely.
Because they don't care what the data is saying. All they care is when I go to the market, when I go for my groceries, I'm paying more, and I don't like that.
And I don't like that, and probably it's because the president is not doing anything about it, right? And I think that is also what has hurt Harris a little bit in terms of these basic economic, pinch points that citizens are feeling and thinking, well, you've been part of an administration that hasn't helped the economy, although the data says otherwise.
Let's look at external influences, because there has been purported Russian influence. I mean, there was the case of sending some, what's the name of that equipment? When the name comes to mind, sometimes the information, there's an overload. But to Putin, which Trump has disputed in that book. But Russian influence has been there. In fact, there's a story that talks about some payments. A pro-Trump influencer says a Russian agent paid him $100 to post a fake voter fraud video. It wasn't the first time, okay? That has come in. There's been purported hacking from the Iranian end with medical records of both Donald Trump and Harris affected, but mainly Donald Trump put out there. There's been Chinese influence purportedly as well. It appears there are so many external influences. How is the United States dealing with such influence, which they term interference in their elections?
I know post-2016, for example, there were quite a number of indictments. There were quite a number of sanctions here and there against certain individuals who had been identified as trying to unduly influence the U.S. election. And mainly they do that through what is now known as, either misinformation or disinformation. But it is also very difficult to sometimes, track the names and faces behind some of this misinformation and disinformation, right? They set up fake social media accounts and then they put out incorrect, false information. But the interesting thing too is that because we are becoming more and more deeply partisan and deeply polarized, it's amazing the extent to which some of this disinformation is embraced as being, the truth, right? Like people hold on to it and use it then as, I told you this is a reason why we keep saying X or we keep saying Y. And I know that, our institution, especially the Justice Department, has been, trying their best to keep up with some of these influencers and trying to push back. But it's not an easy thing to deal with in this day and age of technology and all of these various social media handles and how easy it is to just spread, false information.
Well, I don't know what your response will be on those, interferences, Nanayo.
Well, I think it's, for me, it's expected because like I told you earlier on, everybody is keenly watching the outcome of the US elections. There are external actors who have vested interest in who becomes president, and it doesn't matter what length they have to go to make sure that at least the election goes in certain ways. And so it's expected if you're having elections like that of United States. It's not the same as for the smaller states when they are having their elections. And so it's expected. What I understand and what I appreciate, I just returned from the state a few months ago, and I understand at least the US has certain solid institutions and structures, right, to absorb some of these shocks as and when they happen, to not significantly change the outcome of the elections. So what they call the deep fakes. So when people are using internet to change certain narrative through disinformation and misinformation, there are systems in check 24/7 to try to correct these narratives so they don't affect the pattern that elections outcomes turn out. From my perspective here.
Let's go back to the Electoral College. I did ask you, you spoke about the Sunshine States and Sunbelt States, I beg your pardon, and the others in there. But I want us to focus on those that have become the key battlegrounds in this election. Michigan is one of them, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and you spoke about the swing in the last election. And now it's on a knife edge. You can't even tell.
Right.
I have seen analysis from both CNN, Fox News, and maybe even the BBC. And it's still very tricky. If you look at this one from even Fox News, which is, where the leanings are, it says Trump leads Harris in Arizona, while Harris enjoys a lead in Georgia, North Carolina, Nevada, and Wisconsin. Michigan and Pennsylvania are tied between the two candidates. How crucial could a state like Pennsylvania be, looking at 2016, 2020, when the switch happened, and 2024, looking at the patterns that the polls have revealed?
Right. Now, what I must clarify before I go on to your question is that the polls that they are talking about is national polls. So let's be mindful of that. It is the national polls that they have been talking about, not necessarily the Electoral College vote. So far, it's been the national polls. Now, Pennsylvania carries the largest number of electors among all the swing states. It has 19. So what it means is that whoever wants to win the 270 Electoral College must necessarily win Pennsylvania.
Or if they don't win Pennsylvania, then there must be a big catch-up.
Exactly, a big catch-up. So Pennsylvania is very crucial because traditionally that is why we call it blue wall states. It is part of Michigan and Wisconsin. Traditionally, they had voted Democrat until 2016 happened and they voted Trump. And then 2020 happened and they voted Biden. Now, note that Pennsylvania is the place that Biden was born before he moved to Delaware. So he has a very solid constituency. In fact, they have a rising star in the Democrat Party called George Shapiro, who was tipped to have been the vice president before Kamala Harris went for Tim Walz. So they have a very solid base. Coincidentally, that was the same state that Trump assassination attempt occurred. And then there is a growing a number of voters who feel that Pennsylvania is losing touch when it comes to jobs. So it is not a clear path to victory for the blue state. For Democrats. there is a growing support for Trump, especially what they call the Erie County. So whoever wins Pennsylvania has a very strong chance of winning. Take, for instance, Kamala Harris. If Kamala Harris wins all the blue states, I think she wins 269. She is short of one state, so she probably has to win the other one. On the contrary, if Trump wins Pennsylvania, he probably needs North Carolina, that he lost by just 1.3% in the past election. He needs Georgia. So he needs...
Any slip-ups there could be disastrous.
Could be disastrous. So there's a whole lot of permutation, but we have to understand that the political grievances of the day and the demographic constitution is what informs the popular vote and at the end of the day, the electoral college.
Right. And if you look at it from that angle, you know, I've also seen analysis that says, look, in the end, the gap could be very wide. The popular vote does not count, though in a way, those same votes reflect on the electoral college. But the point to be made is that looking at how they have been skewed in this election, you could have Harris running away with quite a chunk of electoral votes, even over 300, or you could have Trump do same. And I've seen different permutations on that. In other words, the electoral college gap could be wider. You know how everyone is saying it's too close to call, too close to call. But when the chips fall, it could be wider in terms of how people decide to vote on D-Day. And that's where the devil is.
The voter turnout is important, but I beg to differ on the argument you are making. Look, when Kamala Harris came...
Well, it's not my argument.
Right.
I have seen, you know, analysts...
Right. Of course, I agree. I disagree with Professor Lichman, who has predicted 12 elections and 10, you know, has come to pass. I disagree with him on this time when he says Kamala Harris is going to win. Because you see, when Kamala Harris came into the vote, it injected some momentum, some energy, some vibe, some enthusiasm, if you would. And people saw that, people thought this was going to be a walk through the field. But you see, her rise in the momentum is beginning to peak. Like I keep saying, water is beginning to find its level. And there's a plateau. And now we are seeing the solid base of the Republicans right now coming up. Initially, traditionally, it has been to the advantage of the Democrats if there is early voting. But that was one of the reasons Trump claimed he lost the election. So now he is rather pushing the Republican sympathizers to do the early voting. Right. Republicans are also now telling Democrats, do the in-person voting, which has been the traditional stronghold of the Republicans. So everybody is trying to tap from the advantage of their opponents. And so, to me, whoever will win it's not going to be a landslide victory. Okay. It's going to be by a very slim margin.
Time will tell. Later today, we'll get a clear picture. Dr. John Osai-Kwapong, we are wrapping the conversation. The final point I want from you, and then you can add any other thoughts. Early voting has happened, 76 million plus. You must have been one of the early voters. How much of an impact do you think that will have? I mean, what's the news there? Are we hearing anything about the pattern of voting or who is ahead in early voting?
So, as Mr. Mriku said, the only thing we know about the early voting is that whilst it used to be something traditionally that a lot of quote-unquote registered Democrats would do, if you see the breakdown, the most recent breakdown, you see quite a number of Republicans and doing early voting, which even in slightly higher percentages than Democrats, which for me is an indication that they are extremely energized. In as much as Trump claimed the mail-in ballots were fraudulent in 2020, he's been really encouraging, his campaign has been really encouraging his voters to also do mail-in votes. So they are very energized. They are very enthusiastic, and it will really boil down to turnout. And I would re-emphasize the point that Mr. Mriku made. Whilst in the initial stages, VP Harris, a lot of enthusiasm and energy greeted her. It looks like at some point it sort of,
tapered off.
Plateau. Yes, it tapered off, and I'm not sure the excitement is still at the level that it was when she first became the party's nominee. But I agree. I don't think it would be. Whoever wins would not be a landslide victory. I agree with Mr. Mriku that it would be much closer than some analysts.
The landslide I speak of is the Electoral College, not the popular vote. But time will tell whether those analyses will play out or not. Final words.
Yeah, I think it will be closer, even in the Electoral College. I don't anticipate a landslide in the Electoral
But you still expect Harris to win. That's why you voted for her.
Honestly, I won't be surprised. I hope she wins, but I won't be surprised if Trump pulls this off.
All right. So it's in or out. It's 50-50. What do you think? Final words. And who do you think is carrying the day?
This is a very difficult question, but I think I'd go for Donald Trump. I mean, my indicators tell me that he is likely to carry this election. That's what I think.
If you had the chance of voting, would you have voted for him?
Can I not answer this question?
If you were in the position to vote, would you vote for Trump? Or
so I always say that as an African, I'm coming from a place of epistemic privilege, right? And so I have the chance to vote for somebody I think, identifies with my race. And I understand U.S. politics so much to the extent that not even Democrat or Republican has the African, interest at heart. So I understand America has permanent interests, not permanent allies. And so it is very difficult for me to come out and say that I support Harris or I support Kamala. So under the circumstance, maybe I would have thought of going for Harris instead of Trump. But my indicators tells me Trump is likely to win the election.
Right.
Yeah.
And I see you're also going for your permanent interests, your permanent allies. Well, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining this conversation. Those who joined, Nanaya Mreku, he's an analyst as far as international relations and African politics are concerned. Thank you so much, sir, for joining the conversation. We also had CDD fellow and resident in the United States. He's voted as well, Dr. John Osai Hwapong. Both of them joined the conversation. This has been our installment on the AM show of what is happening in the United States. I don't know whether it will have any impact on what happens in Ghana on December 7th, but time will tell. Before we take a breather, this year's CompuGhana Cashback has been named Prime Cashback Season, and it's packed with incredible deals and exciting surprises. This Prime Cashback, CompuGhana is bringing you exclusive discounts, prime savings, and awesome surprises when you shop for any products from any of their branches nationwide. You can find products from your favorite brands like Samsung, LG, TCL, HP, Lenovo, Dell, Midea, NASCO, Tecno, Infinix, Itel, Huawei, and many more. Visit any of CompuGhana branches nationwide and enjoy exclusive discounts on all products. Now, CompuGhana has a wide range of IT-related products, mobile phones and electronic products such as laptops, printers, desktops, tablets, televisions, fridges, home theaters, air conditioners, gas cookers, and more. What's more amazing is this year's Prime Cashback with CompuGhana has got great prizes with instant gifts, and cash prizes for your shopping experience. When you shop at CompuGhana this season, be on the lookout for the surprise team, answer a question correctly, and win instant cash and gifts. You deserve this opportunity too. Rush to CompuGhana now. Promo runs from now till December. Visit CompuGhana.com or reach them on 0302 752020 for more information. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
We
Welcome back
it's our
on the
director's
AM
birthday.
show.
He's just,
yeah, he's being mischievous
this
morning.
He's making my day.
He is. But welcome back.
Thank you, Ben.
If you were an American citizen, how would you vote?
Obviously, I'll vote for Kamala Harris.
Obviously, I mean, you have to state your case.
I know. I get that there are issues that are the heart of this election. People are talking about abortion rights, economy, immigration, and all that. But for me, it's just the fact that, it would be nice to see that a woman sits on that seat.
Are you voting based on niceness, or are you voting based on reality?
Reality, which is that a woman on that seat would not only augur well for Americans, but us here in Ghana. And we get to say
there are there are good women leaders.
In America.
There are good women leaders. I I've always been an advocate. But there are good women leaders and terrible women leaders.
Yes,
as well.
I know. Same as we have good male leaders.
Yeah,
we have
but sometimes
male leaders.
the rhetoric is that, oh, once it's a woman, sometimes
I'm not
it's...
saying once it's a woman. I've listened to Kamala for a while. And honestly, it's an election, okay? You can argue your point out. But for me, the highlight of it is that if Clinton didn't do it, Hillary Clinton didn't get it, Kamala could get it and should get it. I mean, what's stopping us from putting a woman on that seat? Americans, let's go. Let's vote for Kamala Harris. I like that Dr. John Osai Papon said he voted for Kamala Harris. So yeah, that makes me happy. Anyway,
well,
whether or not Kamala would be given that mandate, we will know shortly.
Oh yeah, we'll find out. If I were an American citizen, though, I'm sure it's clear where I would have voted.
Trump?
What?
You said it's clear, so I'm curious. Who would you vote for? Trump?
Obviously Harris. There's no way I would have voted for Trump.
Okay, so
but let's talk about the Medicas Hospital. I mean, you can't denigrate me and expect me to vote for you. Medicas Hospital, a modern healthcare facility built with your recovery in mind, spacious wards built with your family in mind, a warm and caring pediatric unit built with your children in mind. And guess what? They've also assembled some of the brightest minds in medicine, led by Dr. Yorosafo, the drive-time doctor, to serve you. They're offering general medical services, as well as specialist services in plastic surgery, obstetrics, gynecology, child health, urology, psychiatry, and eye care. Additionally, they are also offering a comprehensive medical diagnostic service encompassing endoscopies, medical laboratory services, x-rays, and scans. And to boot, after you've been diagnosed with whatever, what you need is a good pharmacy. And they have one, a 24-hour pharmacy ensuring you will always receive efficacious, safe, and affordable medicine. And they say on top of all that, they are bringing you the most powerful medicine of all. Do you know what? Simple human kindness and empathy. And they take pride in holding themselves to the highest attainable standards. They also accept all forms of payment, including from private health insurance companies. So all you have to do now, make your way to Medicas Hospital, number 10 Kinto Street, near the Ashale Boche School Junction. You can reach them on 0501 477 340 or on social media, Medicas GH, that is MEDICAS GH. Medicas Hospital, a place of healing. I know you love Syntex tanks.
I do love Syntex tanks, and I want to remind you, our cherished audience, to get ready for the biggest giveaway from Syntex Tank. Now, Syntex is giving 15 communities free water, and this is just to say thank you, Akpanami, for making us the #1. Syntex was the first to introduce double-layer tanks in Ghana. Do you know that Syntex also comes in so many different colors and sizes, and was also the first to come out with inner white layer tanks? So, if it's not Syntex, forget about it. Now, if you're a community and you're interested and you want to benefit from the Syntex free water giveaway, just log on to the social media platforms at Syntex Ghana and nominate your community. The more you nominate, the better chances you have of Syntex coming to your community. Remember, it's Syntex, S-I-N-T-E-X, Syntex tank. Not be any tank be tanko. The correct tank be Syntex tank. Syntex tank, a strong, a tough. I thought we had some time to take at least one call. Regular Kojo and Ama, call us right now. Maybe we have a minute or so to speak to you. Otherwise, this would be our show for today. Benjamin.
Well, let's one more time. Oh, I want us to celebrate one more time our very special friends, our talk-loving. He loves to talk and share his ideas. Yeah. Patrick Gomez Otulati, one of our directors. He loves to talk, doesn't he?
Yeah. Always in our ears. If you see us doing this, it means we are trying to tell Gomez to shut up. But it's also
and there's
Bismarck.
Hey, use this Bismarck you are having on it.
He calls me Christiana, so why can't I call him
Bismarck? Tit for tat.
Bismarck, okay, we have a caller, so I'll come back to Bismarck in a bit. From Asamanka say, good morning and welcome to the AM show. You're come to close us. What's on your mind?
And that will be good for the world and Ghana as well. Thank you.
Talk to us. What's on your mind?
I am James.
Oh, okay. So don't listen to us on the TV set. Just talk to me directly. What's on your mind?
Well, I think.
Please, our guests always note this when you call, though we are wrapping the show, when you call, to ensure that you've made it through. There are so many people on the line. When you make it through, don't listen to us on your TV. There's a delay. Listen, just mute your TV, listen on the phone, and interact with us. We're sorry about that, though.
Right. Oh,
So-
I nearly forgot. I have to tell you again that the Girl Get Up Seminar 2024 is coming on the 23rd of November at the Accra Metropolitan Assembly Auditorium. It's called the Snap Cinema AMA in Accra. At 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., we will be there engaging with influential women, ambitious women. It will be like a party. Dress nicely. And if you want more information, just go to Girl Get Up Africa across all social media platforms, and you will get all the information that you need there.
Are you going to give final shouts to Bismarck? Your
Bismarck
friend.
Kweku Asante, I wish you unmerited favor, an ending wealth and happiness. And maybe as you grow and age, you learn to let other people talk.
Bismarck, we'll still investigate those biscuits in your bag, yeah?
Oh,
Bismarck
happy
Kweku
birthday,
Asante,
bro.
Fantastic guy. And that's how we cap off the
Yeah.
AM show this morning. My name is Sweetie Abochi, and
I'm Benjamin Akapo, and we'll see you tomorrow at 6 a.m. and by 10 a.m. we'll be wrapping up. But stay for Joy News Desk with Faustina Safo. Bye for now.